Hey everybody, welcome to the CNC Power Hour. I'm Chris,
I'm Lou.
I'm Clay.
and we're here for our Theros Beyond Death set review.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time Clay's joined us. Lou and I have been doing these since M20.
Mm-hmm.
Real excited to get our hands dirty looking into all of the stuff in Theros Beyond Death. And boy, have we been looking and trying to find some valuable information to tell you guys. But I think you'll like what we have in store.
Yeah.
We have some interesting stuff to talk about. Real quick, overall takes on the set.
Interesting, very highly synergistic. You can play a pile and it would probably work out.
Yeah, that's fair. It's very ground cruiser combat. Like the creatures stick around a lot and get bigger because you're playing a lot of enchantments. So your removal is going to be like what you target is going to be way more important because there's not as much effective removal as the game keeps going on. From what we've looked at. What about you?
Right. I'm excited. I think this is a set that's gonna have implications. Like I'm really excited to see what it does for standard. I'm really excited for a bunch of the cards for like commander and brawl and different things as well. As far as the limited, like just on a sealed or draft, like it definitely seems like it's gonna be like straightforward. Straightforward's not exactly the word, but like you said, kind of like battle cruiser, like you're gonna play and um you're gonna get a lot of value in your deck. And as the game goes on, like cards are just gonna scale. And like it's gonna be exciting to get to play with that. And then I'm really excited to see Escape. 'Cause I think Escape is really strong. And I'm really interested to see how it functions in the limited environment.
I think board state is going to be super interesting. You're going to make a lot of really interesting decisions gameplay wise on a turn by turn basis. Building a deck wise though, I feel like it seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I think
Play lots of enchantments.
a lot of the interesting stuff is going to be the interactions on the battlefield and not necessarily the interactions within your own deck.
Yeah.
As you're building it, which don't let that discourage you. Is not an uninteresting set. Far
Right.
from it. It's very complicated. As Lou mentioned, there was a WotC article, right?
About the number of words on average per card.
Yeah, being
And
way
it
too
is-
high.
Yeah, especially on rares and mythic rares. There was a whole article about them trying to cut down on the number of words on average for rares and mythic rares.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I guess let's dig in.
Yeah.
So first up, so we have a couple of returning mechanics from Theros, and we're gonna go through a couple of the cycles or all of the cycles and talk about the that way we'll talk about those mechanics while we're going through those cycles. So first up are the gods, the big headliners,
Yeah.
right? Which you love because you love some enchantment stuff.
Yeah.
I'll let you read this one off. See if you can get it from memory.
Okay. So Heliod, oh god, Sun Crowned. That's right. I was like missing the title.
Yeah.
So it's the 5/5 for 3 and a white, 2 and a white. No, 2 and a white. 5/5 for 2 and a white.
Yep.
So has the classic the classic Theros god text, indestructible. Heliod is not a god if devotion is less than 5 white.
Yeah.
And then Heliod has whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature or enchantment you control. 1 and a white, another creature you control gets lifelink until end of turn.
Yep.
There we go.
That's exactly it. And it's really interesting that the 1/1 counter goes on to an enchantment you control because it means you can put it on him.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can buff the god in preparation for them to become a creature later.
Yeah.
Which I was mildly confused at when I first read it and then realized the obvious implication. I do also like that they foresaw the issue of you have to put another creature with lifelink and you can't give it to Heliod.
Yeah. That would be a bit much.
For the 5/5 indestructible lifelink, they will just get to keep growing each turn. Yeah. That's even if they didn't block, you just couldn't race
Yeah.
that. Like, oh, it's 5 damage that they're gaining 5, so it's a 10-point swing.
Yeah.
And then it's a 12-point swing.
Yeah.
And it's like you just could not race that no matter what you were doing.
Yeah, for real. All right, and all of these are mythics, which we didn't talk about.
Right. But this also shows off one of the returning mechanics is devotion.
Yep.
Yeah.
So devotion is based off of the number of colored pips, colored mana pips on permanents that you control.
Did you know that hybrid mana counts for both?
It
Yeah.
sure
One of-
do.
I didn't really think. I guess I had never encountered
Yeah.
a point where hybrid mana interacted with devotion.
Right.
With
With Ravnica. Ooh boy.
Yeah.
Ravnica and the Throne of Eldraine
Yeah.
uncommon.
Yeah, the knights, the 4-color mixed pips.
Yeah.
That's kind of a shame that we only got one. Like in the set, we only have one multicolored god. We didn't get the cycle. I mean, I understand why, because in one set that would
Yeah.
be really jam packed to have all 10 gods.
That would be the entirety of the mythic slot
Yeah.
for the entire set.
See, I would
This
be
is
cool.
15 gods.
15 gods. Oh, that's right. So yeah. See, I would like that, especially over the Ox of Argoas and stuff. But I understand why they can't do that. But yeah, because like some of those like the Deathless Knight,
Mhm.
like that just turns on any
Yep.
black green devotion requirement or
Pretty much.
whatever by itself.
Yeah.
Because it's just 4.
Because Erebos or
Or 8,
Helia, they
if
already
it's-
have one on themselves.
Yeah, the gods do count themselves for their own devotion.
Yeah.
Because you have to believe in yourself to get anything. So next up,
What is your devotion?
you know my disturbing amount of self-confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super high. So next up is Fossa Deep Dwelling. So 3 and a blue for a 6/5. Indestructible legendary enchantment god creature. As long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, Fossa isn't a creature. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to one other target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. Immediate blink.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't really happen in standard too often. And then also 3 and a blue, tap another target.
I mean, blue-white does have blink. It's just rarely seen in blue.
Yeah.
It's not often, but this one is just very much a signpost.
This is a soul herder, right? End step.
Yeah.
Blink.
Yeah, basically.
But it's really interesting because blue has some of the best value ETB stuff, whether it's constellation or just creatures that do stuff when things enter the battlefield.
Yep.
So
So we're keep an eye out for that because we're gonna be talking about that later.
So I pointed out the Helion having to put the lifelink on another creature.
Mhm.
Is there a bullshit thing I'm missing on the Thassa has to tap another target creature? Like, is there an abusable thing that we're like being
Nessian
able to
War.
Nessian War? Okay, I don't...
The
That-
10/6 that you have to block.
Oh.
well, that
She has indestructible, so it doesn't really matter.
I was gonna say. So what is the point of being not being able to tap herself?
Yeah.
But
I don't really think there is.
gotcha. It was just a templating thing. Okay, that makes sense. I was just the other day looking at it, trying to imagine if there was a corner case thing that I wasn't thinking about, of where her. But I was like, I can't imagine her paying 4 mana to tap herself. Like
The Shadow More untap artifact.
because it doesn't say untap. If it said tap or untap, then I would understand.
Mhm.
But yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Next up,
Erebos, Bleak-Hearted. For 3 and a black, it's indestructible legendary enchantment creature god, of course. As long as your devotion to black is less than 5, Erebos isn't a creature. When another creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life. If you do, draw a card. 1 and a black, sacrifice another creature. Target creature gets -2/-1 until end of turn. Woo boy!
Yeah.
Good
For a
stuff.
5/6.
Yeah, for a 5/6.
he does a lot. He slices, he dices.
Yeah.
Just a heads up that -2/-1 hits about 20-something creatures in the set.
It
Just by
kills a
itself.
lot
By
of
itself.
stuff. Yeah. And it's incidental too, because then you just go right ahead and you also pay the 2 life and
But
draw
if
a
you have
card.
5 and/or 6 creatures, you can kill opponent's gods
Yeah.
and 10 mana.
And yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can draw 5 cards.
Yep.
Hey,
Because
Oh, they
negative,
tend to
negative
life.
toughness does not get got by indestructible.
exactly.
Mhm.
Perforos, bronze blooded. This is the sneak attack on a god.
Mhm.
It's a 4 and a red, so he's the priciest god so far. 7/6, indestructible. As long as devotion to red is less than 5, it's in a creature. Other creatures you control have haste, and then 2 and a red, you may put a red creature card or an artifact creature from your hand onto the battlefield. Sack it at the beginning of the next end step. So not a ton of super awesome targets in this set by
Right.
itself, but in standard, like imagine you get to throw Ilharg out for 3 mana, and then Ilharg gets Drakuseth,
Yeah.
or you get to get Drakuseth. You get to, there's a bunch of people who are already working on a Through the Breach style deck for modern,
Mhm.
because
Or
you can.
Lathless? Was she the one
Yes.
whenever she attacks, you create a dragon?
Yep. Yeah. So there's a bunch of funky things that you can do with anytime you can cheat creatures out onto the battlefield.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is that like other creatures you control have haste. That's just really good for aggressive style decks. And
Right.
like red green, which is already a
Pretty aggressive.
pretty
deck.
aggressive, but like also like a tiered deck in standard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like being able to say that the Endrace Forerunners, I mean they have haste, but other big beasts that maybe you can Skargan Hellkite. There we go. You
Yeah.
can go ahead and put the counter on
Right.
because it's gonna get haste from Perforos.
All of your riot stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because if you just think about it, just as a 5-mana creatures have haste enchantment, yeah. But yeah, next turn. you start.
But also like 1 or 2 more creatures come out, and because
Yeah.
like the big red creatures all have 2 or 3 pips.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so then it's
you-
a
then you have a
7/6
7/6.
indestructible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you just temporarily turn it into a creature too and swing in with the guys that you.
Yup.
Okay. Yeah. Did not think about that one.
Next up is Nylia Keen-Eyed. So 3 and a green for a 5/6 indestructible god. As long as your devotion to green is less than 5, Nylia isn't a creature. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. There's actually a non-zero amount of cost reduction in this set, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And then there's also 2 and a green. Reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, you may put it into your graveyard.
Is that Vivian's Grizzly?
Something like that.
Isn't that similar effect?
Yes. But it looks at 2, I think.
Yeah.
You have to pick one. It's been a while since I played with Vivian's Grizz.
Yeah.
Which Viv's Grizz got me through that War of the Spark League.
Yeah.
It did a lot
Yeah,
of
it
work for me.
did.
Yep.
But yeah, no, this is a great card. We're going through these up at the top. 1, because they're big. 2, because they go over devotion. And 3, you're going to run them if you have it.
Always. You always run a god if you get a god, you run a god.
Yeah.
In limited, like they all have like the enchantment ability, right? So if they're not online, they all have an activated ability. And then on top of that, if they turn on, they become the best creature in your deck.
100%.
And like they miss so much removal because of the fact that they're indestructible. And if your opponent has to waste resources to kill other creatures so that to try and turn them off, like I mean, like there's so much value.
Exactly.
All of the gods.
Clothis, God of Destiny. So this is the new god that came out to replace Xenagos. Indestructible, legendary enchantment creature, same old, where you have, but this says it's a 2-colored god, just like the previous 2-colored gods, as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7. Clothis isn't a creature. So it's 7 now, but you get to count 2
Also
colors.
the smallest power, 4/5.
All the smallest power, but the thickest thighs.
I don't know about that.
I think
Does toughness indicate thighs?
no, just artwork based.
Artwork,
Yeah,
gotcha.
basically.
Yeah.
I know that, yeah.
Steve
just some-
Magali called her
It's the
very
devotion.
large godchild.
It's thick with 7 C's. That's what the devotion is.
Nice.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, so one red green for this. It's really interesting. So
Really
what
cheap.
about the ability?
Yeah, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a land card, add red or green. Otherwise, you gain 2 life, and Clothis deals 2 damage to each opponent. So there's a lot of graveyard hate, which is solid in the set. That's a lot about graveyard, but or just ramp. It's like Death Ride Shaman, basically.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like graveyard hate / kind of the like Domri style ramp
Yep.
/ Combal's like drain to a
Yep.
turn.
Mhm.
Like it's kind of this wild like triple
Does
ability
everything. Yep.
thing.
Yeah.
Fun
For 3.
like flavor of Orthos type thing. I saw lots of people talking about the fact that so in the old Theros before Xenagos ascended, right? The red-green temple was called Temple of Abandon.
Yeah.
So Clothis, the abandonment, even though they didn't have a name or even a concept for this character yet,
Yeah.
they already had that idea. And so story-wise, when the gods rose up and defeated the Titans and sealed them in the underworld, Clothis was like willingly took the jailer
Right.
role, which is why she was not around. But yeah, I really liked that them like kind of looking back and being like, oh yeah, hey look, abandoned,
Yeah.
red green one. You're like, oh, I never thought about that.
And then also just the whole fact that this whole calls back to the Greek War of the Titans, the Titanomachia.
Mhm.
So it's just like, ooh, yes. Well, once we get to the sagas, we'll get there.
Yeah. So not only are there gods, but this time around there are demigods,
They
which is
have
really interesting.
champions.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
each one's got a champion.
There are story reasons for this, and the entirety of the story is a single article from Wizards of the Coast. I am not mad, but
Just disappointed.
yeah, that's
Or both.
yeah.
Um,
So Daxus, returning character.
yeah,
Uh,
so we've gotten white blue Daxos, white black Daxos, and now Daxos is mono white,
Yeah.
right? And so Daxos, blessed by the sun, is a just white for a 2-star, and devotion mattering again. That the Daxos's toughness is equal to devotion to white. So the butt can grow.
So
as
he's
the game goes
naturally
on.
a 2/2.
Yeah,
so
naturally, it comes in by default a 2/2.
Yeah.
And importantly, also is an enchantment creature, just like the gods.
Yep.
So the demigods are also enchantments. And then whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, you gain 1 life.
Yep.
So that is a relevant ability, especially
With
considering
Heliod.
Heliod.
Ha!
Yeah.
You can very quickly grow up and down. The fact that it dies matters as well.
hmm
You can gain quite a bit of life really quickly.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of people are joking about the Daxos into who's the white queen?
Lindis.
Yeah. Linden.
Linden. Yeah. So curving Daxos into Linden into Heliod.
Mono white life gain.
Mono white life gain counters.
Yeah.
Johnny's Pride Mate effects as
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
Yeah. Your turn 6 is 3 of Johnny's Pride Mates.
Yeah. But yeah, so Daxos for a very, very flavorful, important character.
Yeah.
That we've seen throughout Theros.
Yeah, it's interesting to have him back. Next up, we have Calif, Beloved of the Sea. So 1 blue for a star 3, where her power is equal to. Oop. I'll edit that out. Her power is equal to the devotion, your devotion to blue. So she's at least a 2/3.
Mhm.
Creatures and enchantments you control have spells your opponents cast that target this permanent cost 1 more to cast. So it's a blue tax.
The frost armor kind of deal they were saying.
Yeah.
Watsy's been talking about, trying to add that more to blue instead of giving people hexproof and stuff. So we'll see how this goes. It's interesting just because blue is a fairly defensive color in this set. And this definitely plays into that. Whether or not that's enough or how much that can disrupt your opponent's plans, well, I'll have to see.
Yep.
Timoret, chosen from death, is the black demigod. So we've seen this guy before. He's used to be a zombie murder king. Apparently, Erebos
black
liked
red,
him.
right?
I think he was mono black.
May have been mono
No, I
No,
think
you're
he
right.
He
Well,
was
black,
red black.
It was,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, because normally when you say red black, I'm thinking the Minotaurs.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so here's the mono black legendary enchantment creature demigod. He's 2 and a star. So just like Daxos, it's his toughness that varies on devotion. So his toughness is equal to your devotion to black. And his ability is 1 and a black, exile up to 2 target cards from graveyards. You gain 1 life for each creature card exiled this way.
This feels super good in this set for an uncommon.
Oh yeah.
Just
It
as
feels
a,
like just shutting down for 2 mana, like the ability to shut down the escape abilities.
And
repeated,
the white black reanimation stuff. And
Yeah, like being able to just shut that down and benefit by life gain.
Yep.
Like over and over, if you don't have anything to do with the mana, just keep your opponent's graveyard cleaned out.
Yep.
Like that seems really good.
I think it's going to be very, very versatile uncommon. Oh yeah.
So NX Hardened in the Forge is, so originally we had Annex and Samid, the
Yep.
Boros legends. But so NX 1 red for a star 3, so just like Calif, where the devotion matters for the power this time. And whenever Annex or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 red satyr creature token with this creature can't block. And those satyrs are one of the main tokens in this set.
Right.
You've got your human, you got your goats.
yeah, the goat is a weird one.
You
but-
got 0/1 goats. You
poor
get these
goat.
satyrs. And if the creature had power 4 or greater, create 2 of those tokens instead.
Yeah.
and it does specify, so annex as well matters.
So as long
So
as
it's
you
interesting. So it kind of
devotion,
like benefits a like a go wide type strategy. You kind of get to keep refilling those creatures. Crucially, if you're in like a red black sacrifice type ability, like
Yeah.
deck style, something like that, annex can be really good. Kind of give
Mhm.
you more targets.
there's some
I
good
like,
payoffs
yeah.
for in red black sacrifice.
Oh yeah.
So good there.
Annex will be interesting to see if he makes it into the current sacrifice decks that are actually in standard. Because there's the Mardu and the Jund
The Jund.
decks. So it'll be interesting to see if he can crack that. Um,
Yeah, it'll be interesting. He also plays into there's basically a ferocious deck, so where power 4 or greater matters.
Yep.
And so getting a benefit off of that, because that's in red green, so getting a benefit off of that is also going to be pretty useful. Next up is Renata, Called to the Hunt. I think this is the one that did the most work at the pre-release. So 2 green for star 3, where her power is equal to your devotion to green. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. And the way that the additional wording works is it gets at least 1,
Right.
because 0 and an additional 1 is still 1.
Yeah.
mhm.
So if it doesn't normally come in with 1, you're getting 1.
Yep.
Which is
But if
awesome.
it does,
But if it does, you're getting at least 2.
Right.
Which is great because there aren't a lot of uh, permanent ways to boost your creatures in this set.
Right.
It's all enchantments, which can be removed. Your creatures can be removed too. But,
Right.
it's usually temporary buffs or buffs from enchantments.
Yeah. So +1/+1 counters. There's not a lot of ways to get it outside of the escape creatures who escape with +1/+1 counters. Otherwise, anything that gives +1/+1 counters are usually rare, mythic, like Heliod.
Mhm.
So this is one of the few ways, predominantly in green. Yeah, that's just one of the things I want to take away if you want to start thinking about like how you play through the set and limited and stuff. Most pump effects can be answered. This is one of the ones that you just have to answer with getting rid of the creature.
Yep.
so it's a really good way to tilt in a kind of grindier format, right? Like it just tilts the
Yeah.
tilts the scales if all your stuff is coming, if their stuff's coming in at 1/3s and your stuff's coming in at 2/4s or 3/5, like
Mhm.
Yeah.
super one-sided.
Yep. So one of the last things, well, no, there's another thing, another cycle involved with the gods, and that is their interventions. So these are all X spells that do one of two things. So we'll start with the white one, which is Helios Intervention, which is X white white for an instant. Choose one. Destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments, or target player gains twice X life. So we've seen the life gain theme previously with like Daxus and base Heliod, but then also the fact that white can just go ahead and wipe a whole bunch of artifacts and enchantments, which is super good in this set because we got a lot of enchantments. I mean, this can be creature kill because there's like a third of the creatures in the set
Oh yeah.
are enchantment creatures. So super easy to just kill a bunch of stuff with this. So yeah,
Important to note, like the demigods.
Yeah.
And like stuff like that, where you can and effects that we have not really had in white, where you can just if there's that, or like the legendary enchantment spider, or any of these other enchantment creatures, where you can just be like, I'll pay 1 white white and just destroy that
Yeah.
creature. I mean, it's an enchantment, that's the reason you're getting there, but you can just also hit Stone Coil Serpent.
Yep.
Oh, it's
This is
mono
not multicolored. Yep.
important to note.
Yep. And all of these are instants and at rare.
Yeah. White gets a murder now.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, just as long as you're hitting an enchantment creature.
But yeah, next up we've got Thassa's Intervention. What about Pluto's Intervention? So Thassa's Intervention for X blue blue. So that's all of them are like the X and then the
Deals
double.
one really awesome thing or
double
deals
X.
double X. Yeah.
Bless you, you're so gross. Are you done? What's your deal? So it's choose one. You can look at the top X cards of the library, put up to 2 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So for 3 or 4, this turns into what's the Drawn from Dreams?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of effect at instant speed, which is really sweet. Otherwise, it's a counter spell for counter target spell unless its controller pays twice X.
Yeah.
So if you it's like a worse spell pierce / can scale up.
Yeah.
Depending on if you're in like one of the like the blue-red flash type deck or something along those lines, you just leave your mana up, and they're like, oh, well, I'm gonna pay this, but I'll leave mana up, and you're just like, okay, but like, can you pay 5?
It's
Yeah.
there.
I mean,
Yeah.
6. Obviously, it's got to be an even number. But like, it's like, if I just tap 3 blue, like, can you pay 6 along with that? And like most times, the answer is gonna be no.
Right.
It's there for the versatility, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a little bit underrated, but you get to choose either. Both really good effects.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, Erebos' Intervention immediately making me a liar. I thought they were all double pipped. I didn't
Oh,
realize.
no, that's right. Yeah, the red and the black ones are single pip.
Yeah.
And they're already stronger. That's wild.
Yeah, these.
I think that the red and the black ones are, especially in the mid, the strongest of the 5.
Yeah,
and
and
so
we'll get to why.
And I thought that, not realizing that they were an entire pip less.
Yeah. Yeah, these work really, really well. Just on their own, they're so good.
Yeah.
So, Erebos' Intervention, X and a black, choose one. Target creature gets -X until end of turn. You gain X life, or exile up to twice X cards from graveyards.
Again, graveyard hate.
Yep.
Just got to stop those escape creatures. They're going to be important.
Yep. Or just remove something and gain that much life. Like that's good, and it kills gods because it's -X.
Yep.
So if you can pump 6 mana into this, you can kill all the gods.
And gain 6 life.
And
That's
gain
like
6 life.
that's like a double.
Yeah.
Like that's sweet. I do always love the about twice X wording, right, for the second ability for each of these. But again, it's like you've got this mana and then you're just like exile 12 cards from your graveyard. Like it's like if you're like, your opponent like on their upkeep, they're like, oh, I'm gonna escape for a Titan or something, and you're just like
Right.
You just like wipe someone's graveyard, like, and then with the Ashiok, actually.
Yep.
It's pretty scary.
Porphyros' Intervention. So X and a red. Choose one. Create an X1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So create a chain, ball lightning, or whatever. Or Porphyros' Intervention deals twice X damage to target creature or planeswalker. So yeah, effectively it's just a really sweet burn spell. I mean, the X1.
It's also the only sorcery one. Interesting.
It's also, So the X1, I mean, it's got trample and haste. So if it's an empty-ish board, it still deals a crap ton of damage and possibly wipes a whole bunch of your opponent's creatures if they just try to block it. Or you just hit a creature, just nuke some really scary thing that you're having a hard time to deal with. Or if you've got, the Marshal or whatever, the Boros one, whichever the amount of damage it deals, deal it to your opponent.
The lieutenant, the
There's
Boros.
a mentor, a captain.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting outside of the scope a bit, but
The play is getting me to think about implications in standard. So
yeah.
Nylea's Intervention. So we're back to sorcery again.
Yeah, interesting.
But we're back to the X green for search your library for up to X land cards. Reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. Okay, in limited.
yeah,
Exciting in Commander, those types of formats. The sillier stuff. And then, Nylea's Intervention deals twice X damage to each creature with flying. We actually will talk about, but there's actually fewer flyers in this set than in a normal set. I guess this does just like
wipe them.
nuke the blue-white flyers deck if somebody is foolish enough to still be playing it in standard, and you're like, pay 4 mana to deal 4 damage to each flyer and just nuke.
Yeah, nuke your board.
Nuke a whole board of flyers. But otherwise, that first ability is really in limited, like that can be really good because it can guarantee your land drops, and especially if you're in multiple colors, like it can fix really well.
Yeah, it's just land, so it's non-basics.
Yeah, so you can go get your temples if you've got the temples. You can go get Field of Ruin if your opponent's like just got the one temple that's fixing their mana.
There's one land that really matters when it comes to. There's one non-basic land that really matters in the set.
Oh, right, the maze.
The maze.
Yes. You can also,
really matters is strong.
Yeah,
but there's a Maze of Ith.
Yeah, you can go get the better Maze of Ith, and
yeah, sure.
Scophos?
Yeah.
The Maze of
Scophos.
Scophos? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Something
Maze
like
of Scophos, and it's pay 4, tap, remove target creature from combat, basically.
Yeah. because it is important. It also removes blocking creatures.
That's the one
which is
that.
something
that's right. That's right.
That didn't.
So how does that work? Do you just like all of a sudden just chuck them in the maze?
No, you
Yeah.
pay the one, and your Minotaur fights them instead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The best 2-card combo in the set.
Yeah.
So one thing about Helios Intervention before we move on, it's really interesting that this is a sorcery because there are a non-zero amount of ways for your opponents to give their creatures flying temporarily on their own turn. So while there aren't a lot of creatures with base flying, there's like 23 of them, I think. There's a couple of ways to give other creatures flying.
And Helios Intervention can't do shit about it.
Yeah, basically. That's basically what it comes down to. All right. So next up,
Ooh.
along with the omens,
Tied to the
along with the
gods.
interventions, we have.
Omens.
I really like
These are so good.
I think these are going to be
Such work.
kind of the cards that push me when I'm deciding colors and stuff.
Mhm.
What I end up with omens is probably going to be one of the biggest deciders of colors.
Yeah.
Or the greedy third color or stuff like that. Omens are going to be one of the only cards that really make me want to do that.
Yeah.
You saw Wishing Well from Eldraine was good.
Oof.
Yeah. This is these are really interesting. So these are all enchantments with flash, and they're all at common, and they all do great stuff. So they all have an ability to X or two of whatever color it is, sack it, scry to. But they each have different enter the battlefield effects. So
Also, the artwork on each of these is incredible.
Yeah,
This is one of my
it's
favorite
gorgeous.
set cycle artworks in all of Magic. I think this is like the giant profile for the god with the hand out, and then the like relevant ability being shown in their palm.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the coolest art decisions that's been made in Magic, especially in the last since we've been playing.
Mhm.
I love every single one of these. I think the Erebos and the Heliod are like some of the dopest. Like I want those as playmats now.
Yeah.
Like
These look really good. They got the same artist to do all of them, and they all look real nice. So Omen of the Sun, 2 and a white for flash enchantment. When Omen of the Sun enters the battlefield, create 2/1 white human soldier creature tokens, and you gain 2 life. So turning on Heliod if you've got it, right? The white life gain theme that you're kind of seeing.
right.
And then of course it has the 2 and a white sack it, scry 2. Which is really useful, especially in limited. You know,
especially in limited, especially in white.
Yeah.
Where you're frequently just at the mercy of the deck.
Right. Exactly. So these are going to be interesting. They all, I double checked this time. They all only have 1 pip, so they're splashable.
Yeah.
So you're definitely going to want to consider them. And if they're in your colors, there's no way you're not running these because they're just that powerful at
They
do so much.
They're at flash speed, so they can come in whenever. The flexibility. They all have a relevant ability, especially in their color. They all trigger the main theme of the set, which is enchantments.
Right.
They all also then have the mana sync option to scry.
Yep.
And then they all also help for devotion.
Yeah.
So there's
Yep.
There's
5
no
reasons to play
basically
each Omen.
What are you up to, boy? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, this one is probably my favorite though.
Cool.
Yeah,
But that's just because it's
it would be.
Yeah. Lou, you want to read this one off?
Oh yeah, sure. So Omen of the Sea, which is the blue Omen, flash enchantment, 1 in a blue, so a little cheaper than some of the other ones. I think it is the cheapest one.
Nope. Erebos making liars out of all of us. It's the Erebos one.
I keep on forgetting. Wait, did you forget? You forgot about Timurat too all the time.
Yeah.
So Omen of the Sea,
Someone cares about
flash.
black.
When Omen of the Sea enters the battlefield, scry 2, then draw a card. And then 2 in a blue, sacrifice Omen of the Sea, scry 2. So it already has a preordained built in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pay 5, scry 4, draw a card.
Yeah.
That's
So-
pretty good.
It's really good. Like it's just everything you would want to do. Just I know what it replaces itself.
Put them down.
Yeah. No, not that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. On the table.
But yeah, no, it replaces itself, gives you a scry, and then later on scries it for something else, and it just triggers all the constellation and enchantment fall
Yeah.
shenanigans.
Yep.
So Omen of the Dead, the Erebos one, single black. I think it's the cheapest Omen in this.
Let's wait till we get to the next one. We'll find out.
I know it's just free, and like I don't even know how this is possible. It's it's like red, but it's 0, so it's like. But yeah, so flash. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So like, opponent's instep, you can just be like black. Get something back.
Is this like basically strictly better than Disentomb?
I think so. I don't know.
Effective. I mean unless the
and then
counts.
2 and a black sack, scry 2. So
yeah.
I mean, it's just great, especially there's gonna be a lot of combat and a lot of trading in this set, and so like forcing your opponent into a disadvantageous block, and then like just getting that creature back and putting them again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that's super good. Or your opponent like. You play threat, opponent wastes removal spell on it.
Right.
You get threat back.
Yep.
Everything in the set is about value.
Yeah.
There is so much synergy.
And I think this
here.
is one of the most valuable value driving.
It's who can get the most value or who can get to their, overpowered BS first.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why like Omen of the Dead, Thassa's thing, it's all gonna be good.
I think Omen of the Forge though is
probably the most useful.
If I'm drafting Omens,
oh yeah,
I think this is the one I take.
Snap pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1 and a red flash. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. So if you're worried about creatures, there's 50-ish creatures that it can kill, just right off the bat. And then also 2 and a red, sack it. And I like it being in red because blue-red has the flash sub theme that we're going to get into later, and it's just good. I mean, it's not quite lightning strike, but you get to scry 2.
Yeah.
So, like, it's still pretty good.
You get to scry 2, and it's an enchantment.
Yeah.
For a constellation and all that jazz. It's just again, like 2 damage might not kill like a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, yes, it kills a good chunk of creatures, but then you got to say, all right, and then you get all that stuff.
Have they bet?
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see.
We'll see how this goes.
Yeah. So the green Omen, last one, is Omen of the Hunt. Enchantment flash. When Omen of the Hunt enters the battlefield, so this is 3 mana, 2 and a green. When Omen of the Hunt enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library, and then the usual 3 mana sacrifice Omen of the Hunt, scry 2. So rampant growth, I guess, is yeah. I mean, I guess it just gets
it's not quite cultivate. But
it's not quite cultivate, but it does just get you a land.
It's half a cultivate.
Yeah. I mean, you can pay 3 later and sack it, and then
scry 2.
Scry
2, and then you're triggering all your stuff, and then you're fueling escape. Like they're good.
Oh yeah, that's the 6th thing.
That's the 6th
that
thing.
Omens do is that they could also then be pitched for escape.
Yeah.
Yeah. These things do everything. So if you have them, you're running
common level enchantment.
Yeah. It's
they're
real good.
workhorses.
Speaking of doing a bunch of stuff,
Sagas are back.
Sagas are back. If you weren't around for Dominaria, these things are really, really cool plays on enchantments. They are enchantments, but they have lore counters that you add at one when it enters the battlefield, and then again at the end of your draw step, which is really important.
Beginning of your main phase.
Effectively the beginning of your main phase, but not your upkeep. This is very important for a lot of these things. So there's a cycle, 1 in each color at uncommon, and there's 1 in each color at rare, except the blue one is mythic.
Because it is just that busted.
It's disgusting. So the first one we have is Elspeth Conquers Death. So the first lore counter is exile target permanent and opponent controls with CMC 3 or greater. Non-creature spells, and then 2 is non-creature spells your opponents cast cost 2 more to cast until your next turn, and then 3, return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter or a loyalty counter on it. It doesn't say you can't put a loyalty counter on the creature. Don't be that guy.
I think it actually is a dependent.
Yeah, it might be.
Like
I don't think there's anything in the rules that says loyalty, because planeswalkers can get +1/+1 counters. So I don't see why creatures can't get loyalty counters. It just don't matter.
Right.
So don't be the guy that gets a judge call over that.
Right. There's the spell. There was something like that. That each
I think it specifies
creature enters with a 1/1 counter.
and each planeswalker. Yeah.
loyalty.
Spark Double can do funny stuff too on that.
I think Spark Double is what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, gorgeous art, lovely mosaic stuff. Like sagas always have absolutely wonderful art, and this is no exception.
Yeah, for sure. So what do we have next?
Well, how do we feel about this particular one though? It's just like at 5 mana, like at that point, somebody's going to have something that's worth exiling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like the cost, I like the like making spells, that taxing effect, right? And then like you get to get ideally your best thing back.
I mean, the thing with rares, like almost all of them are just entirely playable and just go
Yeah,
ahead and do it.
it's a 5 mana rare, so if it's not great, then what are we doing?
Right.
It's,
I mean,
it's a 5 mana removal spell in white at the very least.
yeah.
Yeah.
5 mana removal spell and a reanimate.
And I mean, but it's also more importantly, it's exile because of the fact that
Yep.
in a set with escape and stuff, the fact that it exiles
Yep.
is important.
Yep. And it protects whatever big spell you want to cast next turn.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
So here's the big one: Control Finisher. Kiora bests the Sea God. It's a great story from old Theros where Kiora steals Thassa's Bident to help use it to summon creatures to fight the Eldrazi. That didn't end very well. But for 5 blue, so 7 mana, first, what do they call? First chapter?
They're lore counters.
So lore counter,
but yeah, chapters.
First
Yeah.
chapter. First chapter created 8/8 blue Kraken creature with creature token with hexproof. Pretty good. All right. Chapter 2. Tap all non-land permanents target opponent controls. They don't untap during the controller's next untap step. So you basically get 2 free swings with your Kraken, amongst other things.
Yeah.
Chapter 3. Gain control of target permanent and opponent controls. Untap it. So just to bring insult to injury, we're going to get to take their best thing.
Yep.
So, I mean,
Importantly, though, does not give them haste.
Yep.
So if your opponent plays a creature, if you take it, you can't swing with it.
Yeah, even though you're untapping it.
Yeah.
so, but either way, you're stealing their best stuff, and you already swung in for at least 16.
Yeah, and remind me, how much life do you start with in limited?
Just the 20.
Just the 20.
Just
so
the 20.
if you swing for 16.
Yep. Your opponent doesn't have a lot left.
Yeah.
This is great, and there's an argument to be made that if you open this, you're just running it because you can splash 2 islands, or you can splash a couple of islands to have this online by turn 7.
Mm-hmm.
There's no world.
way you don't
There's
run
no
this.
world I don't run this.
Yeah, it's
Like,
just,
there's
if you
just-
get there, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't, like, it was the 7-drop Saga. Like, you don't feel bad if you don't get to like in limited. Like,
Yeah. Do they call them verses? Maybe they call them verses.
Oh, maybe that's what it is.
I think that's what it is.
so
Clay keeps forgetting about this one.
Timuret Calls the Dead. It's cool. No, just kidding. It's a 2 and a black, so it's way cheaper than the first 2 that we looked at, especially for a rare Saga.
Mhm.
But the first 2 verses are the same, where you put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then you may exile a creature or enchantment card from your graveyard. If you do, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So you kind of set yourself up for escape. Get some creatures.
Yep.
If you want to, you can get some zombie tokens. That is important that you don't have to. And then the 3rd chapter is you gain X life and scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. It is a little clumsy because we don't really have much that cares about zombies
Right.
otherwise right now.
Right.
It's just incidental because there are a couple
Incidental.
of zombies
It's,
inside.
so like
It's not like-
incidentally, you can gain like 2 life, scry 2. Maybe a couple more if you happen to have a couple more zombies.
Yeah.
Or you can sack them for value. I mean,
yeah,
it's not like they're providing devotion on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Right, so they can kind of be fodder. They can kind of be some different things. Like it's a neat utility one. But I feel like if you're not in a heavy graveyard matters deck, it's not
Mhm.
not really what you want to be doing. It's not a card. I don't think it's a card that you just throw in to just throw in.
Yeah.
You need to be in this strategy.
Yeah, for sure. Even though it is fairly splashable,
Mhm.
you get at least 2 off of it, but it's not going to be super relevant.
Who knows? Maybe we just get got by it.
Yeah,
pre-release.
that's true.
Who knows? We never know. This is just our opinions
Yeah.
on initial
Oh, yeah.
glance.
Yeah, I mean, like you're probably going to play it, but like if you're in the colors, but relative to the other ones,
Mhm.
nothing comes in that makes me say, yeah, I absolutely want to run this. Actually, so I really like this next one, the Akroan War. So 3 and a red. Act 1, gain control of target creature for as long as the Akroan War remains on the battlefield. Act 2, until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each turn if able. And then Act 3, each type creature deals damage to itself equal to its power.
I
And
love the
so-
flavor of this, the Trojan War. Oh,
Yeah.
hello there,
And
Piper.
not only that,
Hey,
the
now there's a
saga
different
itself
dog.
is unfinished.
Yeah.
Which is really
they
cool
all
because they all die.
It's
or,
so
or, I
well
mean,
done.
or this is the reference to Penelope, Odysseus' wife, undoing her work every night to try to prevent the suitors from.
Yeah.
No, Lou, it's because they're all dead.
It's-
I'm just kidding.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all interpretation, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is whoa.
Yeah.
Strong effect, like gain control of target creature, and then creatures opponents control attack each combat if able. So you can ideally force your opponents into some like not great
Yeah.
attacks.
Yeah.
Not
then-
so awesome if it just you end up getting walloped because like they've got the better things.
Yeah. But then they probably die.
But then hopefully they probably die.
Yeah.
There is a lot of top heavy creatures in this set, so a
Yeah.
lot of things are going to kill themselves. It's not like, oh, these are 2 3s and 3 5s and
Yeah.
nothing happens.
Yeah.
You just have to survive the swing first.
Yeah.
The first Eroan games, this is the green rare saga. 2 and a green, so another fairly one that comes out fairly early. First verse, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Verse 2, put 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Verse 3, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw 2 cards. Verse 4, create a gold token. So this is great. This is just one guy training to become the best like no one ever was.
Yep.
End up winning gold medal. And the gold token is actually a gold medal. So it's just great. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's a nice touch.
We see things like, so this is, like we mentioned previously, not a lot of +1/+1 counters unless you're in rare. So like like Heliod and like this first Eroan games, and then this also ties into the ferocious 4 or greater power theme that you see
Yeah.
in green and red. So yeah, it's pretty good. You just basically instantly get a 4/4 at
Yep.
least, if not better,
Yeah,
and draws you 2 cards.
Yeah. It's good. And it's cheap.
and ramps you.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
So next up, we're going into the uncommon ones,
So
which
not as busted, but I think still pretty strong.
yeah, still pretty strong. Easily splashable. 'Cause I think they're all 1 pip. And so these are interesting. They're not all great, but you might be running them because they just not only do they do things every turn for no investment beyond the initial mana cost, they feed devotion while they're out on the battlefield.
Right.
So
And of course, feed Constellation.
yep, when they enter. So you might be running these. Clay, you want to read this one?
Yeah, so this is the birth of Meletis. So it's 1 and a white. And so the first verse, you get to go get a plains, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Sadly, you don't put the plains on the battlefield. Then you get an 0/4 wall token, and then on the 3rd, you gain 2 life.
Yep.
Initially, I didn't like this, and then I saw everybody talking about basically enchantment control type decks, and
Mhm.
basically just using this as guaranteeing land drops and buying you time.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that then, especially at the uncommon. 4 of these are just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, straight up
right?
just turn 2, next turn, yeah. You can
So
blank a whole
so turn
bunch of their
2,
creatures.
you guarantee you've got another plains in your hand for the next turn if you don't have another land. But then create a no 4 wall.
There are
4
a lot of-
toughness is tough
Yeah.
for a lot of things, and then the more that you can put out, and then you incidental life gain.
Yep, it's pretty good. It works better depending on the strategies that you're in. But I think it's fine. Just 2 mana for go get a plains and create no 4. I do it.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. Next we have Metamis Prophecy. So 1 in a blue. This one has 4 issues. I'm trying to find different names every time. So
Issues is the worst one.
yeah.
I just want you to know.
Yeah.
Um,
This is an epic poem, not a comic book.
please say volumes
I don't
or something.
see a difference. Volumes was my next one. So issue 1,
Episodes.
scry 2. Issue 2, choose a card name. Issue 3, when you cast a spell with a chosen name for the first time this turn, draw 2 cards. Then issue 4, look at the top card of each player's library. So scry 2 and then draw 2, based on either what is in your hand or what you're going to draw.
Hopefully draw 2, unless you forget.
Unless you forget.
Because at some point, because I'm going to run this card a lot, I know I'm going to forget and
Yeah.
realize that I don't have the mana to cast the card that I named. That's 100% going to happen, not only to me, but a non-zero number of Magic players.
Yeah, for sure.
But so at least you get to scry 2
Yep.
and find out what's coming.
You can take notes at pre-releases. You can reference your own notes within your match. Not across matches, just within matches. So if you're gonna do that, if you're prone to forgetting, or if you're going to like a midnight pre-release, just write it down.
But the mind games, though.
The mind games. I'm gonna play this one. They're like your opponent's just gonna be waiting for you to play which like the card
choose
that
a
you
name.
named.
Clothis.
Choose a name. Blightsteel Colossus. Like it just says a card name. It does not have to be a card in your deck.
Grizzlebrand, like yeah. It can be whatever you need to. And then the last one, look at the top.
I'm on arena now.
Yeah. Look at the top card of each player's library as interesting in that it's very flavorful. Doesn't do a whole lot. But yeah, it's fine because at that point you've already scryed, like you've drawn the 2 cards that you've scryed.
Right.
So you get to basically look ahead on yours, and you got to get to see what your opponent's doing. So it's not
Actually,
unless you drew.
so you would have drawn on the card name and drawn on the 3rd chapter. So you would have actually, even if you kept the 2 cards that you wanted to scry, you would have actually drawn them.
You drawn one deeper.
Yeah. So you draw at least 1 deeper up to 5. So you get to look like 5 cards, or you get to look at least 6 cards down.
Right. Well, so
at least 3 cards.
Scry 2.
4 cards down.
Scry 2.
Yeah.
And then if you keep both those on top, you draw one of those for the 2nd verse, and the other one for the 3rd verse.
Yep.
So then you're drawing 2 more cards.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then the 5th is the fate, right?
Yeah.
So at the very least 5. At the most, you're actually going down 7.
Yeah.
If you put the 2 down
So
from the scry.
Right.
So for 2 mana, that's a lot. That's a lot, especially in a 40 card deck.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah, you get to see a 5th of your deck.
Elspeth's Nightmare for 2 and a black. So we had a little discussion about Phyrexians in here, and that was a
in the Discord. Yeah.
fun discussion. But so this one, step 1, destroy target creature an opponent controls with power 2 or less. Step 2, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Step 3, exile target opponent's graveyard. So we've talked before about how good exiling graveyards and graveyard hate is, but in general, this has a lot of incidental extra, like get rid of stuff you don't want to deal with.
Yeah, pay 3 for exile a graveyard is pretty good already, right? And then if it's destroy a small creature and then get best spell, instant or sorcery, enchantment from opponent's hand.
Yep.
And then you get to exile all those.
Yep.
Like, that's super good.
That's duress, right? Duress is non-land, non-creature?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically,
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean that's pretty good for 3 mana. 3 mana destroy. 3 mana kill a creature is fine.
Yeah.
Like that alone is okay. And then the rest of the stuff is just gravy.
Well, so since it's
Power
smaller
2 or
creature,
less.
it's Reeve Soul, right? Was the 1 in a black.
1 in a
But
black.
that was
kill the smaller
3?
thing.
That was 3 or less. Yeah.
That's 3. But so what I'm saying is it's basically Reeve Soul, and then for additional black, you get to duress.
Yeah.
And then you get for funsies exile graveyard.
Yep.
Yeah.
In a set that cares about
Graveyard.
bring stuff back to the graveyard.
Triumph of Anax. So this is the red uncommon, 2 in a red. The first 3 episodes are all the same. You just get until end of turn, target creature gains trample and gets +X/+O, where X is number of lore counters on the Triumph of Anax. So you get +1, then you get +2, then you get +3.
Yep.
And then on the 4th one, you actually get target creature you control fights up to 1 target creature you don't control.
However, it's no longer buffed.
It's no longer buffed. But like ideally, you've removed the bigger issues
Yeah.
on
at
the
that
first
point.
3 chapters.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
Yeah. It's
fine.
it's fine. Like if you're really aggressive, like it benefits you. And there's a bunch of like we were talking about. There's the ferocious theme in red green.
Yep.
And so like there's pretty good odds that turn 4, turn 5, you have the most aggressive creature on the board. So giving it +2/+0 and trample, like real quickly, we talked about 20 life. Real quickly, 6-7 damage. They have to put things in front of you to stop it, because otherwise, like you'll just kill them and by 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's free 6 damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free 6 trampling damage.
Yeah. plus
Waste-
whatever you got on
yeah.
the creature. So yeah, so like you force bad blocks in order to try and trade. If you can get a couple creatures.
Assuming you have the creatures, but red already goes wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
And then on the last one, like you can mop up what's left.
Yep. So next we have the Binding of the Titans, which is I really like the art on this one.
Mhm.
So 1 in a green, season 1, each player puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. Season 2, exile up to 2 target cards from graveyards. For each creature card exiled this way, you gain a life. And then season 3, return target creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. So you
Is
get
it
to,
weird that season 2 is the Timuret ability?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine.
I just noticed that all of
Yeah.
a sudden like a
But it's so if you guys haven't been following any of the tiny lore blurbs that came out with the cards, Clothis basically locked herself in the underworld to keep the Titans down
yeah.
there. So she removed a couple of Titans from the underworld herself, and so that's kind of what this is depicting, and that's where that comes in. So that's why it cares about you exiling creatures,
Right.
kind of like what Timuret does, but Timuret's is a bit different flavor wise. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is fine. You
Green sets up a lot of really good escape stuff, though. That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
thing. So this is, I mean, we know.
Yeah, let's get back Uro.
Yeah.
The green blue Titan.
Yeah.
Yeah. yeah.
But I mean, any of the escape stuff, like you come back with +1/+1 counters, it's pretty solid, and you fuel up your graveyard for escape, right?
Yeah.
So, if you have the right density of escape creatures in your deck, by all means, I feel like that's going to be a slam dunk.
Yeah, for sure. And even then, it just brings something back if you need to bring something back.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Land if necessary.
So the next couple of ones we're gonna go through a bit quicker because they're not quite as interesting. So we have a cycle of nymphs. So these are enchantment creatures, 1 in each color at uncommon. They each have never mind, I lied. I was gonna say they each have a keyword ability, but that's wrong. So
They each just do stuff.
they
It's just,
each do stuff.
but they're really good.
Yeah, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, the Alcid of Life's Bounty. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it.
Sure.
Enchantment creature nymph. 1 white for a 1/1. So a super simple 1-drop, lifelink, nice. But its ability is 1 generic, sacrifice Alcid of Life's Bounty. Target creature or enchantment you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So effectively like that bodyguard was what it was from
Yeah.
Dominaria.
Yeah, effectively.
But it's just a 1/1. It's like a healing
It's more
healer's
like
hawk.
it's like more like a
It's a-
one-off Mother of Runes
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair.
because it's protection.
Yeah.
Which does matter.
Right.
This is like
Exile
indestructible.
and all that stuff makes sense. Yep. But either way, it's just super solid because it's a great way to protect something, or just throw it out there to trigger Constellation and Devotion. Yeah.
Gain a life if you got Helion on the battlefield. Yeah, it's
Turn 1 plays.
it's totally fine.
Naiad of Hidden Coves. It's the blue one. It's a 2/3 for 3, and as long as it's not your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So it's more of the cost reduction.
That's common, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were all uncommon. No, you're right.
No, and so
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it's good. There's a flash archetype. It's gonna be solid. And it's a 2/3 for 3. So like it's on rate.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Next up, we have Lampad of Death's Vigil. So 1 in a black for a 1/3. Pay 1, sack a creature. Each opponent gains 1 life or loses 1 life, and you gain a life.
It's
This is
super
really
rare.
good at common.
Yeah, 1/3 for 2.
I
with,
mean-
like a good sack ability.
yeah, it's cheap, right? The sack ability is
Mhm.
not overly burdensome, and then it's just and you drain. So chump block and
Yep.
Oread of why am I getting all the hard ones? Oread of Mountains Blaze. So-
Mountain.
of
Yeah. Blaze.
Blaze.
1 in a red for a 1/3 enchantment creature nymph. 2 in a red, discard a card, draw a card. So you get to rummage for just repeatedly over and over and over again.
Yeah,
So
She
red,
doesn't tap. So
yeah, red has some solid escape cards. Pretty aggressive. You just go right ahead and fill the graveyard and escape all day.
This is the only rare one. The Dryad of the Elysian Grove. 2 and a green for a 2/4. Lets you play an additional land on each of your turns. So it's Azusa meets Prismatic Omen, because lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types.
Yep.
So
Centaur.
it's-
What is it? Said the Centaur one. Courser of Crufix.
Course or Crufix, but that
no.
That's a bit different. You can.
Yeah.
Oh, because you can play it on the top of your
yeah.
Yeah, and you gain life off lands. Yeah,
I was thinking of the stat line is closer to Courser. Because Courser, I remember, had
Sure.
4 toughness
Yeah.
and is
that's
an
right.
enchantment creature.
yeah, it's super good. It's helpful and limited, but like its actual abilities are going to go into eternal formats.
Mhm.
Like-
as splashable as it's very splashable and limited too. So
Yeah.
this is like if you open it and you want to get greedy, I can't stop you, and I wouldn't blame you if you went for it.
Right.
I think it's worth it.
Oh yeah, oh for sure. So next up,
Another cycle.
another
I
cycle.
think these are the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. These we're gonna go through. I'm gonna go through these. This is gonna be real quick. So these are all vanilla creatures. The only vanilla creatures in the set are these Nyxborn creatures. So the first one is Nyxborn Courser. So a 1
Here's your
white
Courser.
for a 2/4 for a Centaur Scout. That's it. These are all enchantment creatures. They do trigger Constellation, which is why they're important to have at common.
And
but
they're all at least double pipped.
they're all at least double pipped for devotion, and their stats are actually pretty good. So that one's a 2/4, which blocks fairly well. Nyxborn Seaguard, which is the next one, so 2 blue for a 2/5. Merfolk Soldier, 2/5. 5 toughness is huge.
Yeah.
In this set, so this blocks really well. Nyxborn Marauder, 2 black for a 4/3 Minotaur. 4 power is real good. It eats like 100 creatures.
Yeah. It basically eats the majority of creatures.
Yeah. It's this is a great card, great card filler. Next up is Nyxborn Brute, 3 red for a 7/3 Cyclops. This guy's huge,
Yep.
but very fragile. So be very careful if you're relying on him being your top end.
But there's plenty of, you can find ways to, give this guy trample.
Oh yeah,
Triumph of Anax
Yeah, effectively.
goes great with this.
Yeah, there are so many ways to pump your dudes, and 5 mana for a 7/3 is pretty okay. And then lastly, we have Nyxborn Colossus, so 3 green for a giant that is a 6/7, which is probably I'm not sure if it's the best one. I like the blue one a lot.
It can at least go toe to toe with the gods.
Yeah. You can hold off most of the gods, just on its own. So like these are totally fine. You're probably going to run them because they trigger Constellation and because the stats on their bodies are good enough.
Yeah.
So next up we have an interesting kind of like, I guess it's like a microcycle, I guess, but it's a cycle, but this is for an ability that exists all over the set.
So
Right.
we were talking about escape previously, which I actually realized we hadn't really discussed. And or
Right. I was saving
explained yet.
it for this little bit.
Right. So considering that this is all about how Elspeth, the face of the set, she's escaping out of the underworld, there's going to be a whole thing about how you can now, all these creatures and stuff are escaping out of the underworld, or spells as well. So this is sort of a play on flashback, get the play stuff out of your graveyard. The difference is that as an additional cost, you need to exile cards from your graveyard. So for example, this first one is Sentinel's Eyes. For 1 white, it's an enchant creature in aura, and enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has vigilance. Now, it's pretty solid by itself, but if ever this is in your graveyard, you can escape. So you still pay 1 white, and you have to exile 2 other cards from your graveyard, and you can cast that from your graveyard and enchant a creature again. So it just keeps on going over and over and over again. So we were talking about how important cards in the graveyard are. They help fuel escape, or if you just pitch it in there, you always have it. It gives you a sense of flavor. This is a workhorse card, but you're going to see later on some other escape cards that are definitely very exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And the interesting thing about these is that when they go back into your graveyard, they go back into your graveyard. It's not like flashback where as it resolves, you exile it instead.
Right.
You can repeat these for as long as you have the cards to fuel the exile.
Yep.
This is the blue one. So this allows you to actually mill. So it's 1 and a blue. Target player puts the top 4 cards of the library into their graveyard. We've seen this theme in Eldraine with the Merfolk Secret Keeper and some of the other similar spells. And it escapes for 4 and exile 4 other cards. So if you are trying to mill yourself, it actually just feeds itself over and over again.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can, as long as you have mana, keep doing it. Works with Jace, works with Thassa's Oracle, which we'll talk about later.
We'll definitely
Thassa's
talk about
Oracle
later.
is the big one. Yep.
Yeah. So next up we have the black one, Fruit of Tizarus. For a single black, you get a sorcery. Target player loses 2 life. You get a shock in black, right? Or you can escape for 3 and a black and exiling 3 other cards from your graveyard. So this is kind of repeatable. I'm not sure if it's worth it at that point, but just running a
At the
shock.
but at the very end of the game.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
control
yeah,
finisher.
Yeah, it's a control finisher. Yeah, that's true. Your opponent gets low enough, your graveyard gets filled enough. You can definitely make that happen.
Yep. Satyr's Cunning, 1 red sorcery, create a 1/1 red satyr creature token with this creature can't block. Escape is 2 and a red, exile 2 other cards from your graveyard. So yeah, just create a little dude, which red is go wide. So cool.
Yeah, it's a 1/1 for 1. That's good.
Clay, how do you feel about this one? Big beefy dude.
The Loathsome Chimera. I mean, it's it's a 4/1 for 3 that then the next time can become a 5/2 for 5 and 3 other cards.
Yep.
So it's just you force bad blocks. You turn it sideways over and over again. Rob your opponent's take your opponent's creatures out and then keep hitting.
Yeah.
That seems really good. It's not a great card, but as far as if you're filling out the top middle of your curve, I guess. If you're looking for creatures, something like this, a repeatable body is great.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
5 power, like we talked about, eats 100 something creatures in the set. So everything but 9 creatures or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's good. If nothing else, it trades. It makes bad attacks, bad blocks.
Yeah. The thing is, I am worried a little bit about just having it 1 toughness. It's just it feels like it might be eaten by a little 1/1 soldier dude.
But the satyrs can't block.
Satyrs can't block, but there's the soldiers.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
but,
1/1 human soldiers can block and
Right, but so it's a deterrent then.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, if you want to swing on something little, that's great, sure. But it stops Hero the Revels.
Right.
Or
Yeah,
some of these
but
other bigger
Yeah.
bigger creatures, right? It trades with the red Colossus and it trades with the it hits a bunch of the bigger creatures.
Right.
So it stops those from hitting you.
Right.
So
So
and
yeah,
then you
so
can get
so
yours
it works
back.
on it works on defense as well.
Yeah.
yeah. If you're not slamming this into a clear board on turn 3 and then getting to attack in with nothing, your opponent doesn't have anything on turn 4, then it's not great
Right.
as an aggressive card, but it is great as a defensive card.
But it is an interesting thing when we start talking about removal, though, because there's a fair amount of ways to punish 1 toughness creatures, though.
Yep.
So it is a little bit scary. It's still.
I think that's why it's fine that it's a 3-drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
right?
totally.
It doesn't matter that if it's a 3-drop creature that dies to removal spell, okay, it's a 3
Yeah.
And then later in the game it's a 5/2. That
Right.
okay, how many removal spells do you actually have?
Yeah,
Right.
especially at this point in the game.
Yeah.
Cool. 3, 2. Do we even do that, or do we just
You can just launch right into it.
pretend nothing happened?
Yeah.
It totally hasn't been 2 days, and we haven't lost a co-host. uh, all right. Yeah, I guess that's the intro. Now we're talking about removal now.
Yeah.
So we've already talked about most of the cycles. We didn't really talk about the lands
Right.
because it's the Scry lands.
They're nice. They're fine.
They're fine.
I think what's nicer are just the Nyx lands. They look very pretty.
They do look very pretty.
Now I wonder whether or not I should get a collection for my cube instead and replace the Battle for Zendikar lands.
Good luck. No, they'll be
plentiful.
They'll be pretty cheap in about a month.
Yeah.
Because they're in regular booster
They're
packs.
that
Yeah.
pretty, but the thing is, it's just I have to buy another set. I can re-sleeve all my lands again.
Yeah.
But it's so worth it.
Yeah, they're so pretty. Yeah. So yeah, we didn't really talk about them. You're probably running them if there's at least one of them in your color.
Yeah.
Or if one half of them is in your color.
Yeah.
So
Fairly low cost to it.
Yeah, and you get a scry for getting dropping a tap land. It's not bad.
Which I think, given the later on we start discussing general set dynamics and strategy, would probably make sense.
Yeah. So like we did the last couple of set reviews, we're going to focus on the removal that you're getting at uncommon and common, because if you're getting a rare removal spell, you're running it.
Yeah.
And we just kind of want to talk about the numbers and stuff, like what value you're getting for your mana. So First up in white is Dreadful Apathy. So this is a 2 and a white common enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchant creature can't attack or block. And then 2 and a white exile enchanted creature.
Right. So you have your pacifism effect, as you normally see in any Magic set. What's interesting is that it does have that exile clause,
Right.
which, considering how we suspect there's going to be how aristocrat decks and strategies are going to be effective, being able to exile is probably pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then it hits the gods.
Yep.
Like it is as long as the god is online. Otherwise, you can't enchant it.
Mhm.
So if the god's not a creature, you can't enchant it with enchant creature. There are a couple of things that say enchant artifact.
Right.
We'll run into those in a couple of minutes, but you're trading up almost all the time. It might take you 2 turns to actually get rid of something, but you can get rid of their biggest creature. You can get rid of their most valuable creature.
Mhm.
So this is a great card.
Yep. Next up is Revoke Existence. So 1 and a white is a sorcery to exile target artifact or enchantment. So artifact, yeah, whatever. There's a couple of artifacts in the set. The big one is the enchantment. Literally a third of the creatures in the set are enchantments. So this is just a straight up, effectively almost like a, what is it, like a dark banishing.
Yeah.
In white.
Yeah.
It's
It's
pretty
almost
good.
a Doomblade.
Yeah, it's very pretty safe to run this main board straight up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Triumphant Surge. So 3 and a white for an instant. Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. You gain 3 life. This is fine. You're almost always trading up because it hits there are 37 creatures with power 4 or greater.
Most of them are bombs.
Yeah, most of them are bombs. And most of them cost greater than 4.
Right.
So you're usually trading up. The gain 3 life is okay. But like in a control matchup where you're trying where every little bit helps, right?
Yeah.
This is a good card.
Right. Helios Punishment. 1 and a white or enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Helios Punishment enters the battlefield with 4 task counters on it. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. It loses all abilities and has tap. Remove a task counter from Helios Punishment. Then, if it has no tasks on it, no task counters on it, destroy Helios Punishment. So this is interesting because this is more closer to like the regular pacifism for 1 and a white. The interesting thing is that it's temporary. Eventually, your opponent can get rid of this. Now, that may make people think that it's not as good, but for how cheap it is, I feel like this definitely slots more into the aggro strategy. This is for the hit hard and fast. You're going to be dead before you can get Helios Punishment off your big creature.
Right.
Right. So
yeah, ideally.
Ideally. So I think about like this might not be, or maybe in a pinch, right? If you're in a control deck and you need to be able to stave off damage for a little bit, sure.
And until you find your actual removal spell.
Right. But until then, but predominantly, I think this is going to do a lot more work in the aggressive decks.
And then finally, we have a reprint, Vanishing Light.
Yeah.
2 and a white for an uncommon enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Vanishing Light leaves the battlefield. We're going to be honest. You open this and you're running it.
Yeah, it hits everything. The only issue is that there's probably going to be a fair amount of enchantment hate. I mean, we were already mentioning Revoke Existence, right? Already in white. So, right? But still, either way, just it triggers a constellation. Even if they have to find an answer for it, you remove it for a little while. It's fine. It's great.
It's fine. Did we talk about constellation?
Oh yeah. So
in the saga or in the cycles bit, I don't think we did. So constellation is a trigger that's on a lot of creatures. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield, that creature does a thing.
Yeah, basically.
That's all it does.
Enchantment fall.
Yeah. So just keep an eye out for that. We're going to be talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
So next up is blue.
Yep. Oh, do I get it?
You get it?
Ichthyomorphosis.
Yep.
All right.
Close.
Turn into a fish. Ichthyomorphosis.
No, ichthyomorphosis.
Oh, ichthyomorphosis. Yeah. Ichthy was the thing. Was like, yeah, that was me when I was a little kid doing the Ichthyosaurus.
Yeah.
So I always went Ichthyosaurus. So yeah, turn into a fish. 2 and a blue, enchantment, aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue fish with base power and toughness 0/1. So sort of like Frogify. The 0/1 is interesting, which we will bring up again later on when we start talking about the set dynamics. But yeah, this is standard. I mean, this is fine. It takes care of a lot of different things. The losing all abilities is going to be important
Yeah, for sure.
because every creature pretty much in this set has some ability triggered, activated, passive.
All but 5.
All but 5, and those are enchantment creatures, which means they trigger Constellation.
Yep.
So everything in the set does something. So yeah.
Next up, we have Sleep of the Dead. So for a single blue, you can tap a creature, and it doesn't tap until its next untap
It's a
step.
freeze for 1. That's solid.
Yeah, freeze for 1's pretty good. On top of that, this is repeatable. So 2 and a blue, exile 3 other cards from your graveyard, freeze something. So it's good late, good early.
Good if you mill it.
Yeah, good if you mill it. You can bring it back. 4 mana, exile 3 cards. You can tap down their 2 biggest things and go in for an attack.
Yeah.
Um,
It's solid. If you think about it, like this is one of the cheaper ones. So, I think the majority, the mode exile in Escape is 3 cards. I think it was like 22. Was it?
Yeah, most of them are 3.
Most of them are exile 3. So, given normal play of the game, this is. I mean, you're. If you play something like turn 3, turn 4, if they're creatures, maybe one of them's a spell. That's 1 in the graveyard. Maybe a creature dies 4 or 5. So you're probably not going to get 3 other cards in your graveyard until maybe 6 or 7, turn 6 or 7, unless you have dedicated self-mill strategies.
Right, or you're playing a lot of instants.
Or you're playing a lot of instants and sorceries. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. But yeah, so you have a great early turn play to just tag things down and either stall or get in for damage. And later on, yeah, it's totally useful. Playable. 1 with the stars, 3 and a blue, enchantment aura, enchant creature or enchantment. Enchanted permanent is an enchantment and loses all other card types. It still has its abilities, but it's no longer a creature. So, I mean, this is just, yeah, you remove a creature, you blank it out, you can hit their bombs, hit whatever troublesome things you got. They lose all abilities. It's just like a pacifism. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's really interesting because it can take care of gods,
right?
Because it can enchant them while they're an enchantment still.
Right, and they lose all other card types, so they can no chance of ever becoming a creature again.
Yep.
But again, a caveat as usual is that there's going to be a lot of enchantment hate, so do be wary of it. I mean, if you're playing on the pre-release, maybe it's worth signing that out depending on what you see your opponent playing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. If they're in like red black, you're fine.
Yeah.
But if they're in green white, it's going to be tough to get your enchantments to stick.
I was going to say, I was going to make it like, oh, turn into an enchantment, then they can't sack it anymore. But then I realized, wait, in red black now they added the sack enchantment bit, so unfortunate.
Next up, we have Sea God's Scorn. So 4 blue for sorcery at uncommon. Return up to 3 target creatures and/or enchantments to their owner's hand. So this is actually super versatile.
If you remember Captivating Gyre from M20, this is exactly this plus enchantments in there.
Yeah, exactly. So if you in a pinch, you can bring your enchantments back to redistribute them or re-trigger Constellation,
right?
Or just stack them onto one dude. That like just stack them onto your flyer and make your flyer as big as possible or whatever.
Right.
So it's totally possible to use this both defensively and offensively.
Right.
This is going to be a pretty good card. It's a good top end for a limited control deck. You're probably going to run one of.
Yeah.
If you open it up
as a way to just big tempo swing, set your opponent's back, and clear the way for whatever your finisher is. Next up, Stinging Jellyfish for 1 and a blue, enchantment creature fish. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, you may tap or untap target non-land permanent. Now, I really like this. I mean, you'll notice that there's a lot of flash cards in blue and in red, and they have that sub-theme of casting your first spell on your opponent's turn. I think this is really solid in terms of just being able to tap down your opponent's creatures while doing whatever it is you want to do, whether it's your draw card or your burn spell or something like that. Toss down an Omen, right? Toss down like the Omen of the Sea or Omen of Thassa.
Yeah.
And okay, cool. Now you also stopped their biggest attacker.
Yep. Yeah. So you deal 2 damage. You kill a small thing with Omen of the Forge and tap down their biggest attacker for a turn.
Right.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Next up is black, which has the most removal spells.
Of course.
So first we have a Blight Breath Catoblepas, Cat Bleeble 4 black for a common 3/2. So this is a creature, and it enters the battlefield. Target creature and opponent controls gets -X until end of turn, where X is your devotion to black. So already it's at least killing a 2-drop or an X2.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're in black, you've already got a couple of things on the battlefield. You're probably going to kill a much bigger creature.
If you need to keep, if you have that stuff sticking around. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Next is Final Death. 4 and a black, instant. Exile target creature. Simple as that. So we know in general they're in common. Black has a 5 mana kill spell and then a 4 mana kill spell in uncommon. So 5 mana kill spell with upside. This one straight up exile target creature. It's going to be relevant in this set because of all the escape. Otherwise, it's fine. It's nothing super exciting. Versus comparison to like Bacon a Pie in Eldraine, which is 4 mana for your common kill spell and also create a food, right? This one is on par when you compare to things like back in Ravnica, thinking of Midnight Visit, where it's destroy a creature,
Deadly Visit.
Deadly Visit, right? Where it was destroy a target creature and then surveil 2 for 5, and that one was a sorcery. So this is an instant exile target creature. Cool, like it's on par.
Yeah. Next up, we have Grim Physician. So it's a single black for a 1/1 zombie. When it dies, target creature and opponent controls gets -1/-1 end of turn. You're killing a 2-drop, or you're chump blocking something and killing something else.
I love creatures like this where it's just so much versatility, right? It's just okay, cool. You can definitely trade up with this thing, or if need be, sack it for whatever aristocrat value you need, and just so happens to might kill something else along the way, kill some X1.
Right, exactly. Which there are 20 creatures in the set with 1 toughness.
Yeah, or shrink your opponent's big creature and make it unprofitable for them to block whatever it is you're sending down the way.
Right, exactly.
I love it. Myers Grasp, 1 and a black. He's probably one of the best commons in the entire set. Enchantment aura, enchantment creature, enchanted creature gets -3/-3. Super versatile, kills a crap ton of stuff on the board.
Yep.
Triggers it triggers a constellation and shrinks their biggest creature if it doesn't kill them outright. Meaning it sticks around for devotion. This is just stupid good, dummy good.
Yep. Yeah. No, this is a great common. You're definitely running it in black. It's splashable.
Yeah.
So even if black's not your primary color, you're definitely going to want to put this in.
Right.
Next up, we have Mogus's Favor. So I actually really like the choices you get to make with this one. So for a single black, you get a common enchantment that says enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/-1. And then there's also Escape. 2 and a black, exile 2 other cards from your graveyard. So it's a cheaper escape cost than a lot of the other cards on the exile axis. But for 2 and a black, you sort of, basically for 4 mana, you shrink you get to kill an X1 that your opponent has, and then kill another X1, or make one of your guys big enough to kill something else, to trade something else.
Right.
And you can keep bringing this back.
Yeah.
Because two cards is really easy to get into your graveyard.
Yep. Especially if it's if it's one of your, especially if you're doing the trading, if it's one of your creatures, cool, then that adds it in already.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Farika's Libation, 2 and a black for an instant. Choose one. Target opponent sacrifices a creature, or target opponent sacrifices an enchantment. So this is interesting because I know Watsi was talking about, or Maro was talking about, having black make people sacrifice enchantments to have them deal with it. So this is, your edict effect. So it causes them to sacrifice an enchantment. Totally, it's solid.
Yeah,
it works.
The only issue is that the longer the game goes on, the more things are going to be on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So you absolutely need to play this for it to be its most effective. It's got to be early,
right?
Which kind of sucks, but you're still probably going to run it.
Or on the offhand chance that your opponent has like one enchantment creature, right? In which case most of them, if it's not the vanilla one, it's a good chance it's a very strong creature. So
that's true. Something similarly that you kind of hope that you get out early, but probably won't be able to, is Farika's Spawn. So for 3 and a black, there's an uncommon creature, Gorgon. It's a 3/4, and it has Escape, 5 and a black, exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. It escapes with 2/1 counters on it, which in itself is really interesting. It makes it a 5/6, which is pretty good stat wise. And when it enters the battlefield this way, each opponent sacks a non-Gorgon creature. So the odds of if they're not in black, they don't have a Gorgon.
Right.
But that late in the game, they probably have a couple of other creatures that they're willing to sack, especially an escape creature that they can also then probably bring back. So you have to be really careful about when you bring this back. You have to decide, is what they're going to sack, or is the body better than possibly giving them something to fuel escape, or bring back.
Or maybe in some cases they just have a bunch of tokens where it's just not particularly impactful for them to get rid of.
That's true.
but it's a 5/6 body, which it can rumble with the gods.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So it's one of those things where you do have to pay attention to. It's a really interesting tension that we'll talk about in this set, where just trying to find like whether or not something is worth it, because everything is going to be, a lot of these games are probably going to be in the on the inches.
Right.
So this is the 4-mana uncommon black kill spell. Drag to the underworld for 2 black. This spell costs X to cast, where X is your devotion to black, and destroy target creature. It's an instant. So I'm pretty excited about any of these like less X is less to cast, where X is your devotion. I'm
Right.
super big on the Chimera in white.
Mhm.
This is also really cool. I mean, just because there's so many easy ways to make this cheaper, and in which case, cool, you just got yourself a murder.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That works.
Not even a murder. Just if you have 2 black pips on the battlefield, right?
Yeah.
It's a Doomblade.
Yeah.
So just black destroy target creature. That's real good.
Yeah.
Or walk the plank.
Walk the plank.
But that's walk the plank's sorcery. So I guess it is.
Yeah,
closer.
you're right. It is close. Yeah, Doomblade is probably closer.
Next up, you have Inevitable End, which is a really interesting card. So 2 and a black, enchantment aura. It's an uncommon enchant creature. Enchanted creature has the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So the way that this is worded, right?
Yep.
It's the enchanted creature's owner
Right.
that has to sacrifice things.
Right. And so, you can try to avoid its inevitable fate as long as you can by having all of its friends and family die.
Mhm.
Horrible, horrible deaths until it's his turn to go down, or he can do the noble sacrifice. Go quietly into that good night.
Right.
Again, this is really interesting, the tension in the fact that like your opponent has to make the decision of whether or not whatever it is that they're sacrificing is worth it, or do they have enough disposable things? How important is this creature to them? And that is a really interesting dynamic in the set that we're going to see all throughout. Again, because we've said every single creature in here does something.
Right.
Every single creature is some kind of really good payoff or really good enabler for something or another. So, like, I think this decision is harder than you think.
Yeah, for sure. Normally it would just be I'll just sack the creature on
Right.
that this has on.
Yeah.
But it's going to take.
But if you put it
a
on
lot to
Demigod
do.
or something,
Yeah.
right, then they'll be like they have to think real long and hard.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, we have the color that has the second most removal spells, which is red. So first up is Final Flare. So 2 and a red, instant common. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sack a creature or enchantment. Final Flare deals 5 damage to target creature. This is pretty good. I mean, it hits almost every creature.
Pretty
in the
much,
set,
yeah.
but at a cost, right? It's not only is it 3 mana, but you're also getting rid of something.
Right. But sometimes, I mean, it depends. Like the omens are pretty common, and maybe this 5 damage is worth the scry.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Or maybe a saga at the very end that you don't really care about anymore.
Right. Yeah, because you can sack a saga with its third third effect on the stack.
Oh yeah.
So because you sack the saga after the third effect resolves.
Right.
But if the third effect goes on the stack, you can sack the saga to something else. You get a ton of value off of it.
I forgot all about that one.
So this is one of those ways to just get that little extra edge.
Right.
Which I think it showed up in the pre-release.
Okay.
I think so. I think someone like there was a judge call on it.
All right.
But it's legit. Something that you can do.
Yeah, yeah. Erebos' Blessing for 3 and a red. It's an enchantment, aura, enchant creature you control. When Erebos' Blessing enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. I mean, yeah, it's an enchantment, of course, in theme with the set, but it's basically 4 mana, deal 4 damage, and put a +1/+1 counter on a creature.
Yeah.
In enchantment form.
Yeah.
What's not to like, right? This does a lot of different things. It burns an opponent's creature. It can trigger heroic. It's an enchantment that triggers constellation, and it's a red pit for devotion. Like it does so many things. This is super versatile. Love it.
Yep. You can play it before combat. You can play it after.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be really good almost anytime you get to drop this.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we have irreverent revelers.
They didn't care. That's why they're on this list, right?
That's true. That's true. 2 and a red for a 2/2 common satyr. When Irreverent Revelers enters the battlefield, choose one, destroy target artifact, or it gains haste till end of turn. A 2/2 haste or a 2/2 haste for 3 is fine. Like the very definition of fine.
Yeah.
There aren't that many artifacts that you really want to hit I'd argue that like the chariot is probably the one that you want to hit the most, which is it's a vehicle that has first strike and haste.
First
and
strike, haste, and
trample.
trample. It is very good. I love it. It's a callback to Chariot of Victory.
Yeah,
And that's in my
yeah.
cube. So I'm like, oh yes, I see that. I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Although for me, also, you can make a pretty good argument for the Mana Rock, the Pantheon.
The devotion.
The devotion Pantheon.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if it's turning on their gods, right? Like I'm thinking of the pre-release, right? There was that 4-color deck
Mhm.
that ran. It was just because they had the carry added, and I think no, I don't know if they had that. They had the temple, but either way,
I think it did.
okay. But either way, like it's just, I think it's definitely worth hitting. Next up is Wrath and Flames for 3 in a red. So this is a nice callback because I drafted this in Lemuria and it did work for me. Wrath and Flames deals 1 damage to each of up to 3 target creatures. Those creatures can't block this turn. So not quite removal. However, there are a lot of like X1 creatures in this set that's incidentally you can just go ahead and just tag and just punish.
Yep.
But predominantly this is a clear the board and make way for my big creatures to swing in for Alpha Strike.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Next up is Dreamstalker Manticore. So 2 in a red for an uncommon Manticore. It's a 4/2, and whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, Dreamstalker Manticore deals 1 damage to any target. This is super incidental.
Yeah, but again, this is another one of the cases where you are punishing any of those X1s. So we have those goat tokens, right? We have those satyr tokens.
Yeah, the soldier tokens.
Yep, soldier tokens. And we've got a couple of the good constellation creatures were like 1/1s or like a 2/1. I remember was one of them. So, or you just ping at your opponent's face. It's just like, all right, cool. Everything is an incidental extra 1 damage to your opponent's face every time you're casting a spell. Okay, like I'll take it, especially because this is a particularly well efficiently casted body. It's a 4/2, which means the 4 power takes care of a lot of creatures. It's very hard to have a profitable block in here, and yeah, it's a enchantment creature. Like it does a lot of things again. Fateful End. So 2 and a red, instant. Fateful End deals 3 damage to any target. Scry 1. So this is the bolt in the set. It's a little bit more expensive, right? But again, we have so many other really efficient ways to hit things and burn. Like, all right, cool. What's another burn spell in here? And it's the Scry 1. It's an instant. So again, if you're in the play a Drago archetype, right? But it's fine. Obviously, it's not a lightning bolt or anything or lightning strike, but I think it still has reasons to play. You're not going to be super excited, but definitely playable.
For sure.
It's great that you're the one who does it.
Yeah, we joked about this in the first section of this review, but Gophos Maze Warden is the most limited possible removal spell you could have. So 3 in a red for a 3/4 is fine.
Yep.
It's an uncommon. Pay 1, Scophos Maze Warden gets +1/-1 till end of turn. Also fine. That's a totally fine ability. But whenever another creature becomes the target of an ability of a land you control named Labyrinth of Scophos, you may have Scophos Maze Warden fight that creature. That's a rare. Like,
and this is an uncommon.
We should have run the numbers to figure out how often this is going to happen in a sealed pool. I don't know. Like, I would be surprised if like one person in a store gets this.
I would be
to work.
I don't know. I'll call it. If I open these 2, I am jamming that no matter what.
Just to fuck with me. Yeah, no, I got
that
it.
and the turtle.
Yeah, and the turtle. That's fine. The turtle's a great card. I can't argue with that.
All right, yeah, this is 05 flash. Like it's
yeah.
it'll stonewall a lot, pretty much anything that's coming at you.
Yeah. But this guy, it's okay. If you have it, try it. Yeah. It's a May ability, so it's not the end of the world, but I highly doubt that you're really going to get too much value out of this without just straight trading it for something.
Right.
And yeah, maybe it's worth it.
Who knows?
Who knows? That's your decision.
Yeah.
I will judge you for it, but that's okay.
Lastly, we have Underworld Fires for 1 in a red, sorcery, uncommon. Underworld Fires deals 1 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. So yeah, this is another way of punishing 1 toughness creatures.
Yep.
Also, incidentally, I guess you can use it to sort of try to get that last bit of damage after you've attacked. But do note that if it does incidentally kill any of your creatures, it also exiles them. So it might be a non-bow if you are running any escape value in there. So, but otherwise, if your opponent's going wide with tokens, there's a lot of X1 tokens out there. So by all means, have fun roasting the goats.
Yeah, exactly. So that actually brings us to green. First up in green, we have Plummet, classic sideboard card.
Mhm.
1 in a green instant at common, destroy target creature with flying. There are 23 creatures with flying in this set,
Yeah,
or
there's
that
not a lot of flying in the set.
yeah, or that have the ability to give flying, which is like 4 of those creatures.
Yeah.
You're not main decking this.
Right.
This is almost strictly a sideboard card and limited.
Although if this was like Crushing Canopy or something,
Oh yeah, if it was Christian Canada, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
it would be that would be stupid busted though.
Yeah, but no, but straight Plummet by itself, you're almost never running it.
Warbriar Blessing. So 1 in a green, enchant creature you control. When Warbriar Blessing enters the battlefield, enchanted creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Enchanted creature gets +0/+2. So actually, I think this is surprisingly good in the fact that like there's a lot of creatures are square statted
Mhm.
in this set. So if you are at least even on there, it's great, and then you'll be trading up because the extra toughness means you'll survive anything that you're fighting with.
Right.
So I think this is a real solid spell. You had a big butt with a one, then it's yeah. I have nothing to say other than this is solid. It's the only
Yeah,
fight
it's
spell.
solid. Yeah, it like every other fight spell, it depends on the creature that you're fighting with,
Right.
but it
Green is
gives it
no shortage of good
that.
creatures to fight with.
Yeah, that's true, but it also gives it that much extra
Yeah.
ability to survive. So this is a good little card.
Yeah, it's a fight spell that also almost ensures that your creature survives the fight. So if you
Mhm.
think about like outmuscle, when you add him in outmuscle, it's like, all right, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But then that's indestructible. But this is a very similar line,
Mhm.
right?
Next up, we have Chainweb Arachneer. So for a single green, you get a 1/2 uncommon spider. It has reach, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature with flying and opponent controls. It's oh no, what was my guy from Allegiance? Crawl Harpooner. But it's not as powerful. It might be later. So it also has escape 3 black, exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. It escapes with 3
I guess that's
+1/+1
sort of
counters on it.
undergrowth.
Yeah, it's sort of undergrowth and it comes back bigger. And at that point, it kills the flyers, almost every flyer.
Yeah.
In the set as a 4/5.
Yeah.
It might even survive that time, but for the first time you're playing it, unless they have a dinky little flyer out, you're probably basically just trying to finish it off.
Right.
Because it's not a May ability. The enter the battlefield ability is not a May ability.
Mhm.
So you have to have it fight a flyer. But a lot of times they're not even going to be any flyers.
Yep.
Because there's only 20 something of them.
Right.
So it's a fine card.
Mystic Repeal, 1 green for an instant. Put target enchantment on the bottom of its owner's library. So we were already saying, what is it? The repeal existence
Mhm.
was the white one. Already hits a whole bunch of stuff with enchantments. This is similar. It's in green. Just put it at the bottom of the library. It's cheaper.
Revoke existence.
Revoke existence. That's what it was. And Mystic Repeal, it's similar in that vein. It's solid. It takes care of a lot of really hard to deal with creatures or your opponent's Saga or whatever that's being a real pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I mean, super versatile, pretty worth main decking.
Oh yeah, I agree. Just for a single green, just to get rid of a problematic enchantment.
Yeah.
Real good.
Mhm.
Finally in green we have Fairies Band Brawler. 4 green for an uncommon Centaur Warrior. It's a 4/4, and when it enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So this is okay. It's
It's exactly Affectionate Indrik.
yeah, it's a functional reprint of an affectionate Indrik. And
4 damage. It's a good break point. It kills majority of creatures in the set.
yeah,
Like sometimes you just need somebody who just beats you for 4, no matter how much it costs.
yeah, and if you can get it to survive and kill something, you're way ahead.
Mhm.
So this is very situational, but if it's just killing something, it doesn't feel great.
Right.
You really want to get this guy to stick around.
Mhm. Okay, so generally we were talking a little bit about the dynamics of the set. We mentioned again that there's a lot of synergy here in Theros Beyond Death. There is every single creature pretty much has some form of effect, whether it's an activated ability, some triggered ability, or something static on there. But the only ones that are vanilla are the enchantment creatures, and
Yeah.
so they trigger constellation. So every creature has a role that they will do something on the board. So in a sense, this is going to be super complicated, but also really rather straightforward because pretty much everything is playable and can do something. The enchantment creatures are going to be able to trigger constellation. They're pretty regularly statted bodies, so they're perfectly playable by themselves. Um, there's a lot of different archetypes, and things can slot in and fit in multiple different things. So you'll notice that when we start talking about the decks and the archetypes that you're going to be playing, we're not going to be focusing as much on stuff like enablers and maybe more so on the payoffs because pretty much everything is an enabler.
Yeah.
But what that means when you think about building your decks, though, is going to be super interesting because every creature is going to have so much value and generate value and be that engine for you. This is going to be where you find that push-pull dynamic going on. You can either choose to go for that really high, heavy, like everything is a piece, very Johnny-centric, Johnny-Jenny-centric, like this is going to go trigger this thing, trigger that thing, and every card I do is going to do 3 more effects than what it says on the card, right? But that also means that you're going to value your creatures more.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the thing is, like, that leaves you open to a more aggressive deck that doesn't really care. That's going to force you to say, is like 6 damage coming to my face worth me keeping, my like stinging lionfish or something, for example, or
Right.
my demigod, right? So you can build either towards the sort of control-y kind of deck where I am just going to prevent you from doing all the crazy shenanigans that you want to do, and like grind things out or like be willing to trade and do all that stuff, stock my graveyard and just constantly get value that way. Just either creating tons of value from my creatures being on the battlefield, being able to do stuff and trigger their abilities, or being able to cast cards for escape. Or I'm going to be somebody who says, forget all that. I am going to force my opponent, not just combat math is for my opponent to decide. Combat is whether or not this is 5 damage coming to your face. Like, are you going to throw your best creature? Are you going to throw your probably less powerful? Well, so somebody's going to lose the fight. Your opponent, you're going to send a creature under there that's probably going to trade them off. But the thing is, my guy is just a big beefy beat stick. Your guy is helping you with your constellation engine,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's where you want to look at when you look at your pool. And that's where I see is going to be real interesting. The board state is going to be where a lot of the complexity is going to be and where you're going to have to think about what your game plan is. It's going to be very game plan centric. And you got to figure out then that's going to be the metric in which you sort of decide whether a card fits in your deck. Because again, you can jam a random pile of 23 cards in either a color or two and it probably play pretty decently by itself.
Yeah.
Right. Like everything will do as long as you have some density of enchantment cards. It's probably going to do pretty well. So I think we were talking about this, and this is effectively going to be like, is your game plan? Is this a dick measuring contest?
Yeah.
Or is this going to be a roast where you're going to say it's like, nah, no, you're not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Or it's like, is my bullshit going to be more overpowering than your bullshit?
Right. Yeah. And so it's a really interesting twist on who's the beatdown, right?
Right.
So instead of who's the aggressor, it's who is getting more value out of every single trade that is happening on the battlefield.
Right.
Because there's going to be a lot.
There's going to be a lot of trades. Yeah, because some people are going to want to stock their graveyard, or some people are going to want to keep their demigods on the board, right?
Right.
Or some people is just like, yeah, you know what, screw it. I have that giant Cyclops, which is what is it, 7/3 or 7/4?
Yeah, 7/3.
Right. So is 7 damage to your face worth your demigod?
Yeah.
Right. Because your demigod's going to be doing a lot of stuff. Like for example, the green demigod.
Mhm.
Right.
It's going to grow every single one of your creatures.
Right. But is that worth taking 7 damage to the face?
Yeah.
This also makes you rethink things like the enchantment, the Mogus's Fury or whatever it is, the +2/-1.
Yeah.
Right. This makes it so that effectively your creature is going to kill something, is going to trade. So it comes to the idea of like, does your opponent have something that is of little value to them, worthy of offering that trade?
Right.
So I think it's going to be super interesting. I am really excited, but I think that is the central thing you want to think about when you start thinking about like, how do I think about drafting? How do I think about playing this set in this limited environment?
Yeah. I think, and also depending on which game plan you're going, you kind of want to. There are like 2 things that you really want to look out for is generating chump blockers or sacrifice value.
Right.
Because there's a couple of archetypes that
Right.
are really focused on sacrificing and getting value out of that, And then there are also a couple of archetypes that are just hell bent on surviving
Right.
for as long as possible until they can escape their best cards out of the graveyard.
If this is if you are on that side where yes, you value your creatures generating value and triggering their effects more than your opponent smashing into your face, you're going to want to generate those tokens, those cheap, low value creatures to be able to hold off and throw them to the dogs.
Yeah.
Right. So when you think about that, that makes it really interesting that the satyrs are 1/1 in the camp block.
Yeah.
Right. Or you have your goats, which are 0 power.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So not these creatures aren't going to be able to generate any threat and be able to possibly trade if your opponent are throwing in, high power, low toughness creatures at your face and forcing you to make that kind of decision. So this is super interesting when you think about, okay, in white, there's the 1/1s,
Right.
And then you have the 2/2 black zombies, and then you have your 1/1 tentacles from the Nadir Kraken, right? That's why I think those are really good, because these tokens, they're low value, and yet you can offer them up to these trades when it comes to the point where your opponent's on the beat down and your opponent's trying to say, sacrificing a creature to try to do 6 damage to you is worth it. Thinking about like the Ferocious Intervention. Think about that. Like that means a lot when it's just a straight up expel. You just okay, I'm gonna send 7 damage to your face. What you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Right. Going to Mogus's thing. What else is there? I think I had one more point going on about like this changes how you think about the dynamics of having a high power, low toughness creature. This makes me reevaluate Timrat Calls the Dead.
Yeah.
Right, because that's the big zombie generator.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like a lot of people are thinking it's like it feels underwhelming compared to the other rare sagas.
Right.
When you think about that dynamic of yes, okay, this maybe not for a beatdown deck, but this is the thing that generates enough chump blockers for you that'll blank a lot of your opponent's most aggressive creatures.
Yeah, that's true. And then the last thing you're gonna really want to look for is how to break board stalls.
Right.
And the biggest way to do that is, I guess there's really two. There's one in red, which is the creatures, up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn.
Right.
Wrap in flames, right?
Yep.
And then the second one, the next two are in green. Nylea's Forerunner and Nyx Herald both grant trample.
Right.
Nyx Herald only gives it to one creature. But Nylea's Forerunner gives it to your entire team.
Right.
Which, if you've been building up your creatures, you're in a board stall, but your creatures are bigger than your opponent's creatures, they just can't get through.
Right.
Because your opponent has slightly better blocks. This is going to break that board stall. This is going to clear up the board real quick, or even just get you in for the win.
Right.
So these are cards that, if you're in those sorts of strategies, that you're going to want to value pretty highly.
Yeah, this is how you counter gumming up the board, because there's not a lot of first strike either. We have the Chariot, which is pretty solid, and then we have that enchantment though. That what you call it? That gives you +2/+2 first strike.
Aspect of the Manticore.
Oh yeah, Aspect of the Manticore is the red one. I was also thinking of the white one too. The white enchantment, where if you hit your opponent, you generate a 1/1 soldier.
Right. Yes. Commanding Presence.
Commanding Presence.
Yeah.
So yeah, these effects are going to be super important. Also, if your opponent finds the gumming on the board, so there's a lot of push-pull tension going on here.
For sure.
So do we want to start moving on a little bit to some of the things? Because
so with the we're gonna harp on this a lot, but with the idea that every creature kind of not only serves a purpose, but can kind of fit into almost every strategy.
Right.
You're really going to want to focus on the payoffs for those particular strategies. And so each of the colors, just like in every other draft set, there are signposts. But there are also, how do the signposts not get in there? It's fine.
Yeah.
There are signposts and then payoffs, but almost everything in those two colors are going to be enablers, or they're going to be really obvious enablers. Like anything blue and red that has flash, you're going to want if you're in the blue red flash archetype. Where did that go? That's okay. We'll pull it up. So one of the first ones,
Staggering Insight for blue white.
Yeah, Staggering Insight.
I know it is an aura for blue and a white enchant creature. And I'm going to try to go to this from memory. Enchanted creature has, I think it's +1/+1, and whenever it deals damage to an opponent, draw a card.
You're missing one thing. Lifelink.
Lifelink. Okay. Cool. The white part of it. Yes.
Yeah. So it's blue-white curiosity.
goes to show which part I care about, right?
Yeah, yes, that's true. That is exactly true. Yeah, so this is sort of a signpost for like a blue white tempo deck.
Yeah. Or auras also because white has a
Yeah.
lot of constellation. For example, we have Favorite of Erebos, 2 and a white constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, Favorite of Erebos gains double strike until end of turn.
Hmm.
So go ahead, toss the staggering insight onto this dude or this chick, I think. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it hurts.
Yeah. Exactly. There's also Shoal Kraken. So this is actually a blue uncommon. So for 4 and a blue, you get a 3/5 Kraken. That is Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So fuels. So trigger. So if you're triggering Constellation, you're probably playing a valuable enchantment.
Right.
Feeding Devotion, and then you're able to not only draw a card but fuel escape if you need to.
Right.
So
And it's got a big butt.
yeah, and it's got a pretty big butt.
Yep. Pious Wayfarer, again, you get whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. 1 mana for a 1/2. This is just, yeah, it's something that does something for you when you send an enchantment out, and so it's just a payoff. I think it's really helpful if you're sending people in. If you
Mhm.
got like your first strikers, if you got like that Erebos as champion, I mean, that's a great combo right there. You can't go wrong.
Yep. Next up is Captivating Unicorn. So 4 and a white for a 4/4. It's a unicorn that says Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature and opponent control. That's fine.
Tempo play, yep.
Yeah, that's a perfectly fine tempo play to tap down a blocker,
Mhm.
or if you have one of the omens, tap down an attacker.
Right.
This is
It's a 4/4 is a big body.
yeah, 4/4 is also a very big body, blocks well, attacks well.
Mhm.
This is a good card.
Yep. Triton Wave Rider. So 3 and a blue. Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, Triton Wave Rider gains flying until end of turn. So we've noted that there is not a lot of flying in the set. This is one of the few, and it's not even constant. But that also means we don't have a lot of reach either.
Yep.
So we have the Spider, which is a 1/2. And then we also have the Nexus Archers, I believe it was. It's a 1/3. So
Yeah.
this will get through predominantly mostly the common.
There's a random red card with reach. I can't remember which one
Right.
it is.
Is it one of the giants like the
I think it's one of
Cyclops?
the giants.
Okay. So either way, it gets through a lot of stuff, and it's a great way to just get in damage if you're doing a tempo kind of play.
Hmm.
It's great.
There's also Sage of Mysteries for an O2 for 1, which is okay. Blocks kind of well early game.
Eat
You
your
have
crap.
yeah. You have Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard.
Right.
So you can kind of go on a little mill plan here, or you can target yourself
Right.
to fuel or find something with escape.
Right. So this is the sort of the question where like, hey, is this worth it if your opponent is coming in with like, 2 damage, 3 damage? Again, do you want to block or not? How much is it worth it to you for
Hmm.
you to continue your mill strategy versus your opponent, hitting face?
Right.
Shimmerwing Chimera. Oh, I really like this card. So 3 and a blue, enchantment creature, Chimera. Flying at the beginning of your upkeep, return up to 1 other target enchantment you control to its owner's hand. So yeah, this trigger constellation over and over and over again, or an omen. Like if you do this with the omen of the sea,
Mhm.
omen of Thassa. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, please.
Yeah. I think this is that's going to be a really key card for this sort of archetype.
Right.
Next up, we have blue black, sort of like a self mill
Hmm.
strategy. So the main signpost for this is Devourer of Memory. So for blue and a black, you get a 2/1 Nightmare. Whenever one or more cards are put into your graveyard from your library, Devourer of Memory gets +1/+1 until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn.
Right.
And it also has an activated ability of 1 blue black, put the top card of your library into your graveyard. So if this guy sticks around, you have what? Maybe 30 turns of getting this guy unblockable.
Right.
But assuming you play him on 2 and start milling on 3.
Right. But
But
the thing is that like this is a thing that is again this is a card that does so many things at once, right? 3
mhm,
damage per turn is nothing to sneeze at, right? And then enabling escape, right? We were talking previously a little bit before we were recording the green bear, the 2 for a 2/2 that throw something in from your grave if the mills you won, and if it's a land you gain 2 life
yeah,
or
1
one
life.
life, one life, and it's just three. 3 mana, it just makes sure generate something for escape, and also the 3 damage. Sign me up. The thing is that if you add this into the other payoff also for like what is it not the blue merfolk that mills whenever it hits cards, effectively what's just going on is just it's just card access, right? Either it's the self mill plan if you're going for the the real Hail Mary play of getting the what is it, Oracle of Thassa,
Yeah.
or it's just access to all of your escape cards,
Yeah.
right? Just hopefully getting better cards to escape with and just overpowering your opponent with value.
Yeah. So we talked about a couple of different cards there. First up that you mentioned that I want to bring up is Towering Wave Mystic.
Yeah.
So 1 and a blue for a 2/1. When it deals damage, target player puts that many cards from the top of their library into their graveyard.
Mhm.
This is not damage to a player. Damage, period.
Yep.
So if you want to chump block it, you still mill for 2.
Right.
Or if your opponent blocks it, you can still mill for 2.
Right.
So this is a perfectly good card in this little deck. And then the other one that you talked about was Thassa's Oracle, which it's a shame Clay's not here to get giddy over this particular card. But so
The wordiest card in the entire set.
yeah, you want to go for it?
Sure. Thassa's Oracle, blue creature, merfolk wizard. When Thassa's Oracle enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to 1 of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. So effectively, if you have cards less than or equal to your devotion to blue, then you win the game.
Yep.
So you need to mill yourself out hardcore in order to get this. But I mean, one of the big enablers for this, which is we don't see, which is Sweet Oblivion, 1 in a blue sorcery. Target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. Escape, 3 in a blue. Exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. You play it again to exile 4 more cards from the library into your graveyard.
Yep.
So we saw this the pre-release, like Grim did this, and it's just like, woo.
Yep.
It works.
Yeah. This can work pretty well because it fuels itself, and it's not like Flashback where the spell exiles itself after it resolves.
Yep.
It just keeps staying in the graveyard.
Right. Like retrace.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's something that you can want to you could use. It's also a 2 mana exile a 10th of your opponent's deck, right?
Right.
So this is a perfectly fine card if you want to try to go on the mill plan. It's the mill plan is like the offensive mill plan is like a subset of the self mill plan,
Right.
right? Because it's real tough to get all the pieces there,
right?
but
And
they
your
exist.
opponent likes it too because of escape.
Yeah, and your opponent, you're fueling your opponent's escape. But if you're fast enough, then it doesn't really matter.
Right. So Venomous Hierophant, 3 in a black, Death Touch, Gorgon Cleric. When Venomous Hierophant enters the battlefield, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. So self mill, another instance where this is one that's a 3/3 Death Touch. Death Touch is going to be important just because it helps defend yourself against the big smashy face kind of deal. Because this is definitely, it's interesting because there's a real tension in here about whether or not this wants to be a defensive deck or like an offensive deck. Because if you have the signpost, then by all means you're probably leaning more towards the offense. Because blue and black also probably have more of the flyers, if I remember correctly. I don't think there's a lot of white flyers. Most of the flyers are in black.
Yeah, there are a couple, but
most of the non-blue flyers are in
Yeah.
black. So in that sense, you can go either the aggressive kind of blue. If you don't have the milling part down, blue black can still probably have a fairly aggressive tempo flyers deck.
yeah,
In that sense, though, what's also really interesting, I think, fits surprisingly well in this particular archetype is Fruit of Tizoris, which is 1 black for a sorcery. Target player loses 2 life. If you're doing
Yeah.
sort of a mix of both self mill and damage, because, for example, let's say you do have that that Devourer of Memory, then you're going to be stocking your graveyard with cards, and you're going to have an easy way to fuel Fruit of Tizoris, and just every turn getting an extra 2 life. So what is that? It's 3 + 4, 7 mana late game to just deal 5 damage. Like that's a much faster clock than just coming in with 3 every turn.
yeah, and it's especially the longer games go on, the more stuff is going to be in your graveyard, the more damage this is going to do over time.
Yep.
So this is a fine little card.
Yep.
I think that does it for that.
Right.
Yeah, so you can just kind of want to look for a couple of like looting enablers and things like that.
Yep. Elite Instructor was the one we had over there. Enters the
Yeah,
battlefield loot.
yeah. Enters battlefield loot 2 for 3,
Totally fine.
totally fine in blue. There's also Funeral Rites, which is a really interesting card.
Yeah.
So 2 and a black for a sorcery, you draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, and then put the top 2 cards of your library in your graveyard. So it's read the bones.
Read the Bones had a scry in there.
Yeah,
Sign in Blood.
sign in blood, but you pay an extra mana to mill 2, which is interesting. But yeah, so that's another nice little enabler that's probably worth running anyway, and even if you're not in this archetype.
Yeah.
Be-
Because card draw is going to be important.
right,
Because I mean, as much as we've been talking up Constellation and all that other jazz, like it doesn't really mean much unless you actually draw your Constellation cards.
right,
So that's why the scry and the card draw is all going to be important because you need to make sure you keep fueling your Constellation value engine.
yeah,
Right? Which is why I think like Thassa and that Shimmerwing Chimera, where you get the blink stuff, bring it back to your hand and be able to play it again for value and re-trigger everything is going to be super important.
very very important. So that brings us to the next archetype, which is red black sacrifice. This is a really, really interesting, aggressive,
Yeah.
value engine sort of archetype.
Yeah. These guys don't care whether or not you need to keep on drawing your things. They've already done their job once they're on the battlefield.
Yeah, exactly. So first up is Slaughter Priest of Mogus. So for red black, you get a 2/2 Minotaur Shaman at uncommon.
Mhm.
Whenever you sack a permanent, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Then you can pay 2 to sack another creature or an enchantment. Slaughter Priest of Mogus gains first strike until end of turn. So
So
pay 2, sack something, make this guy a 4/2 first strike.
yeah,
Totally fine.
that's pretty good, especially when it's just already just get on the battlefield for 2. It's ready to start sacking stuff already.
Yep. And this is also really good if you have like just a creature that's under an enchantment removal spell
Right.
that you want to sack.
Mhm.
So this is good. You can generate a couple of tokens and get rid of this guy, especially in red, which is the color that generates all the satyrs.
Yep. Blood Aspirant, 1 in a red, creature, Satyr Berserker. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Aspirant. And for 1 in a red, tap, sacrifice a creature or enchantment. Blood Aspirant deals 1 damage to target creature. That creature can't block this turn. Again, another way to punish 1 toughness creatures, but also a way to just chuck something at your opponent's creature and they can't block. So a way to
Mhm.
get things in. And all along the way, you're growing the Blood Aspirant. So either whoever's doing the sacrifice, things are going to be growing. Things are going to be getting nastier and nastier.
Yep. Next up is Dream Shaper Shaman. So 5 in a red for a 5/4 as probably the most expensive red card that we're going to talk about today. But so it's a Minotaur Shaman uncommon. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 2 in a red and stack a non-land permanent. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land permanent card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Chaos Warp?
It's Chaos Warp. I mean, you don't have the chance of bringing that particular permanent back, but
Right.
it's basically Chaos Warp.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of things you can sacrifice. Omens, right?
Yeah.
Your enchantment, your vanilla enchantment creatures. If there's something better,
It doesn't say non-token, so you
right?
can sack a token.
Yep. What's yeah, you, there's just a lot of things to sacrifice.
There's so many things. So many things to sacrifice.
Yep. Careless Celebrant, 1 in a red for a 2/1 creature, Satyr Shaman. When Careless Celebrant dies, it deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Again, this is just like the Grim Physician. I love these kind of cards where when they die, they deal extra damage. This thing trades up to something with 4 toughness.
Yeah.
If need be.
This is
Great
2
deterrent.
Footlight Fiends in an overcoat.
Right.
So like this is real great for 1 in a red.
Yeah, so good on defense, but also again, we were talking before about set dynamics. You can slam it into your opponent, and this is an easily 2 for 1.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they ask your opponent, is it worth it? Like, is that damage worth it? Or do you want, or I can just keep smashing your face for 2? Or if you do try to stop it, I do take out like 2 maybe important combo pieces on your board.
Right.
Oh yeah, Grim Physician again. Right
Yeah, Grim Physician, who we talked about.
Yep.
Lampad of Death Vigil, who we also talked about back when we were talking about the Nymph cycle.
Yeah.
Which the gaining a life is actually really good. So sacking something and draining is a very, very useful thing.
Right.
There's also Soul Reaper of Mogus. So 2 in a black for a 2/3 Minotaur Shaman at common. This time, so it's 2 in a black, sack a creature, draw a card. Pretty good.
pretty good.
Turn your dead creature or turn your not effective creatures into cards.
Right. Just to make a note, like you do want to balance out your sacrifice outlets and your sacrifice fodder if you're building an aristocrats deck. One of the things it's just when I'm building, my cube has an aristocrat sub theme in there, and it's just it's always a thing I'm worried about is balancing the enablers and the outlets. So, yeah. Scophos War Leader. So 4 and a red. It's Minotaur Warrior. 1 red, 4/5. So 1 red, sacrifice another creature or enchantment. Scophos War Leader gets +1/+0 and gains menace until end of turn. So it's already a fairly aggressively statted creature at a 4/5. The 5 toughness on the butt means it survives a lot of fights. Giving it +1/+0 and menace means that effectively nobody's going to be double block. It's going to be really hard unless they have a lot of creatures to double block it. Try to take it out. Like this is going to do a pretty good job of getting through.
Yep. And as an example of one of the things that you're going to want to keep an eye out for when you're building this deck is Discordant Piper. So 1 and a black for a 2/1. When Discordant Piper dies, create an 0/1 white goat creature token. So sack this guy, get something else to sack, right? And all of these abilities are instant speed sacks. So you can do it before damage. I guess technically Dream Shaper Shaman is not instant speed, but you can do all of this before damage, just to get a little bit of extra value out of chump blocking with the Discordant Viper.
Right. All right, and our next uncommon is Warden of the Chained. So for a 1 red green, it's a 4/4 Minotaur Warrior with Trample. Warden of the Chained can't attack unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. So in red green, we have a power 4 or greater matters in the set. So Ferocious from Khans of Tarkir.
Yep.
So yeah, since green is probably the only color in here, green is the predominant color in the set. There's not a lot of +1/+1 counters in here. Green is predominantly where it is. It definitely helps a lot with this archetype.
Yeah. Green's a really integral piece for this. There are a couple of things in red that most of the things in red care about it. Or most of the things that care about this are in red.
Right.
But green is really going to help you get there. And there are a couple of cards that we're going to talk about that sort of fit multiple archetypes, because we've already said that there are cards that fit multiple archetypes, or that almost every card fits multiple archetypes. There are some specific ones that we're going to get to in just a second.
Right.
But before we do that, let's talk about one of the payoffs in this little archetype is Furious Rise. So for 2 and a red, you get an uncommon enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until you exile another card with Furious Rise. So you basically draw a card.
Right.
Every turn.
It's the siege, the red siege from Khans.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, good.
But it's not just on your turn.
Right.
It doesn't exile or
but you get to play it until your next. You get
until
to
your next end step.
Right. Next we have Heroes of the Revel. So 4 and a white, 4 and a red for a 4/4 4/4 creature Satyr Soldier. When Heroes of the Revel enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red Satyr creature token with this creature can't block. So the 4 and has another ability, but I'll get to that. So the 4/4 already helps in this particular archetype, but this also fits in the red-white go wide heroic archetype, because the second ability is whenever you cast a spell that targets Heroes of the Revel, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn.
Yep.
So this is the pseudo heroic that they have in the set, where everyone that says hero or heroes of blah have the ability where whenever you target this creature with a spell, so it has to be not ability, which sometimes some people might think. It's creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. So if you generate for example, this red Satyr token, or white, you have all the
soldier tokens.
All the soldier tokens. Yeah, you can get a pretty big army that's going to hurt when they hit.
Yeah, and so this fits every red archetype basically. So it's a 4/4. Like you were saying, it fits the go wide, it fits the heroic, and it gives you sacrifice fodder for the red black. This is a great card all around, and it's just one of the examples that we have of everything fits everywhere.
Yeah.
Otherwise, for this particular archetype, you're going to want to play anything that has 4 power or greater.
Right.
So in particular, one of the things that works pretty well is Stampede Rider for 2 and a red. You get a 2/3, which is not power 4 greater, but it has trample itself. And at the beginning of each combat, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it gets +1/+1.
Right. So there's a lot of different ways to get it to have
Mhm.
more power, right? We have plenty of enchantments and auras to boost them up. Yeah, and +1/+1 counters in green. It's totally not unheard of to get there, and all of a sudden you're off to the races.
Yep. And the fact that this triggers on every turn means that for the most part, it's going to be a 3/4
Right.
whenever you get to play it. So 3/4 for 3, as long as you have, Warden of the Chained or something else out, is pretty good. And then this is also where Nylea's Forerunner comes in as a 5/3,
Right.
right? But it gives your already pretty big powered creatures trample.
Right. Voracious Typhon is another one. It's
Mhm.
just a giant snake beast.
Snake Beast.
It looks a little bit like a beholder from the way over there, but like, wouldn't this also be sort of a Hydra-ish kind of deal? Like,
Yeah, I feel like it's not quite a Hydra.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a shame, but
right.
2 green for 4/4 is pretty good.
Yep.
That's on right, but it has escape 7, so escape 5 green. Exile 4 of the cards from your graveyard, and it escapes with 3/1 counters on it.
So 7 for a 7/7.
Yeah, so already it's great, and then it just gets even better whenever you get to recast it.
Right.
So this is a premier uncommon or a premier common
Yeah.
if you're in this particular archetype.
Mhm.
Speaking of escape,
Yeah, predominantly a lot of good escape value stuff is going to be in green-black, because black and green both have ways of dumping cards in the graveyard. Oh, Pluto, you just jumped off my lap, and if I thought my leg was going to get a rest, my leg is asleep.
rip. The dog has no sympathy.
Yeah, he won't know my suffering.
No, it'll be
Uh,
fine.
Yep. So the signpost uncommon in green-black is Acolyte of Affliction. So for 2 green-black, it's a 2/3 human cleric. When Acolyte of Affliction enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Then you may return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand.
Mhm.
So like Golgari Findbroker.
Yeah, easier to cast.
Yep.
And just real useful in this particular archetype because you're going to want to self mill a non-zero amount,
Yeah.
but you're also going to want to make sure that you're playing your creatures on time.
Right.
So being able to get something that you've milled or that has died already and being able to replay it is
Right.
going to be super duper valuable.
Right.
Then along the same line, we've talked about the Binding of the Titans.
Big baby.
So, 1 and a green for the first album. Each player puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. For the second, exile up to 2 target cards from graveyards. For each creature card, exile this way you gain a life. And then finally, return target creature card or land card from your graveyard to your hand. So, same vein, just a little cheaper, takes a little bit longer. But this is something that you're going to want to be looking for if you're going into this archetype, or if you're thinking about building this archetype, is that this is really going to help you fuel that. And then beyond that, it's just find some valuable green-black creatures that have escape on it.
Right.
And then good green-black removal.
Right. And either take back a creature that that way you can try to get more value out of it, or just a land to make sure you hit your land drops.
Right. And it feels weird for us to be like, this is sort of where we're going to be going through these a bit quicker because there's just like that many versatile cards that if we talked about every single one of them, we would be here for 12 hours long. We're not limited to resources, right? we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Other people do it, and admittedly, other people do it a bit better than us.
Right.
But we like the sort of like the overall push into a particular direction that we're giving you.
And to look at some of the gameplay dynamics that you might not notice, or like it's arguably some of it is hot takes.
Yeah.
But I feel a little more confident after calling out a little bit how I felt about how slow Eldraine was,
Mhm.
and how grindy some of the thing was. So fingers crossed that I called it again this time.
Yeah.
In terms of the real tension and dynamicism of the board state when it comes to Theros Beyond Death.
Yeah. We feel pretty confident that it's really going to be a very like a sort of moment to moment decision making game
Right.
because if every little interaction you have to make that calculation of who's getting the more value, who does this benefit the most.
Yeah. It's going to be
Because
pretty spiky.
yeah, it's going to be a very spiky format. It is not bad. You
Right.
know, it's there's still a couple of silly things that you can do,
Oh yeah.
like Scophos. Uh, but
Thassa too. I mean, Thassa's Oracle, right?
yeah, that's his Oracle. There's some fun things that you can do.
Yeah.
Pegasus Tribal, like there's a lot of fun to be had in this set. But going through it every like card by card does not
Right.
really feel like it. So unfortunately, it might feel like we're rushing through these archetypes,
Right.
but they are pretty almost build. They almost build themselves,
Right.
which is a really interesting proposition. Now, 3 months from now, it might not be that interesting.
3 months from now, we might realize like what is the best and what is what you could reasonably disregard.
Mhm.
But I don't think we're that comfortable like making those calls just yet.
Right.
I don't at least don't have that much confidence in my own card evaluation skills.
Yeah, let us get a couple other of these under our belts, and then we'll see if we're really that good at these set reviews. But um, next up in the archetypes, now that we've discussed why we're going through these fairly quickly, next up in the archetypes we have Siona, captain of Pyleus, 1 green white for a 2/2. When she enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library, which is a lot.
Yeah.
7's a lot in limited. You may reveal an aura card from among them, put it in your hand. The rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
I mean, just think about it. It's Treasure Cruise.
Yeah.
Not Treasure Cruise. Dig Through Time.
Dig Through Time. Whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a creature you control, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. This is fine. I mean, like, even if it doesn't get you the aura that you're wanting, or even an aura, like say you whiff, you are 7 cards closer to starting to generate a bunch of token value.
Right.
And then it's weird to say that
green has some of the really good auras.
Green has really good auras. White has really good auras. White has some more token creation auras.
Right. White. I mean,
right.
White has that the plus. I haven't quite remembered the +2/+2 first strike one. Or if you just forget it, just like don't care about the token generation, and just give it the aspect of the Hydra, whatever it is.
Yeah. What is that one? It's not quite aspect of the Hydra, but it's dumb. We're gonna get that real quick. Just Hydra. Hydra's growth. There we go. Yeah, just double up the number of 1/1 counters on something every turn.
At that point, you don't even care about a go wide anymore.
Yeah. You just build. You just Voltron it up. Get it trample as much as possible, or as quickly as possible.
Right.
So next up, we have this card that I'm still contemplating why it exists. Not in the sense that it's bad, but it's too good. So 1 and a green for a 2/3. This is Destiny Spinner. She's an uncommon human enchantment creature. Creatures and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. Awesome. There's only like 3 counter spells in the set, but it's still pretty good.
It's more a constructed kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And
even then, I think right now a lot of it's like bounce more than anything else. Like it's like the fairy and all that stuff. We'll have to talk to Clay. He knows standard more than us.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple. I mean, the Frilled Mystic and there's a bunch of other kind of stuff. Mystical Dispute, which is it's kind of like a mana leak, but the other ability is 3 and a green. Target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature token for creature with trample and haste until end of turn, where X is the number of enchantments you control. It's still a land. This is great because there's not a lot of ways to give something trample.
Right.
And the longer a game goes on, the bigger this thing's going to be.
Right. And it's a mana thing. Although the question is the number of enchantments. At first you would think that this would be like your devotion to green, but it isn't. It's the number of enchantments. And so considering that there's so many uses for like sacrificing enchantments and stuff, and auras being fragile already on creatures, I don't know. I feel like this is not going to be as big as people fear it to be. But then again, even if it's like a 3/3, that's still reasonable. Like you just need to get to 4/4 for it to be good.
Yeah, you need it to be a 4/4 for it to be pretty good. Anything beyond that is great. And then at that point, like if the game's going on long enough,
right?
You have 10 mana.
Yeah,
right.
You get 2 lands to throw away. You can trade off against your opponents and just force them to make that decision. As we were saying, like, is this 3/3 trampling land that there's probably going to be another one coming? Is it going to be worth, trying to throw trump blockers in front of it?
Yeah.
So next we have Dawn Evangel with 2 and a white. It's an enchantment creature, human cleric. Whenever a creature dies, if an aura you control was attached to it, return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So this is interesting because this if you're doing a lot of auras, what is her name again? Ilias? Siona. So if you have a lot of enchantments that you're playing, if you have a lot of auras for Siona, I mean, this is great. Like you're going to have creatures with auras on it. Green and white has some really good auras on them,
Hmm.
so you're just generating more value. So you keep the pressure up.
Yep. There's also Transcendent Envoy, which is a 1/2 for 1 and a white at a common. This is actually really good. Aura
Yeah.
spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
Right. So 2 for a 1/2 flying body, all right, they're pretty decent. But then
Yeah.
cheapening stuff. This is just like the Naiad, the blue Naiad, which it makes cards that you cast on your opponent's turn bloodless to cast.
Yep.
So it's in common. You're going to see a lot of those. So you got to ask yourself, like, all right, can I afford to chuck a couple of those in the front of my opponent's rampaging, 3/3 creature in
Hmm.
order to save some damage to my face because I have plenty of these guys, right?
Yeah.
Then we have the Fog in the set. Inspire Awe for 3 and a green. Instant. Prevent all combat damage that we dealt this turn, except combat damage that would be dealt by enchanted creatures and enchantment creatures. Scry 2. So, because in this, in green white, you're going to be having a
Hmm.
lot of auras. You're going to have a lot of enchantments out there. Could be a one-sided board wipe.
Yeah. Pretty much. It could also be 4 mana scry 2. Like that's it's got a low floor
Yeah.
and a pretty decent ceiling.
Right.
So like you're totally fine running one of hoping for this to be
White Black Reanimator. So this one, the signpost on common is Rise to Glory, 3 white black, sorcery, choose one or both, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and return target aura card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So both are of note is to the battlefield, which is really solid.
Mhm.
And it's 2 things. So yeah, really good. What's really excited to me about this is that there's just a lot of persistence in here between the white creatures and things that happen when creatures that are enchanted with an aura die. So we saw previously the white card in white that says whenever a creature that you control that's enchanted dies, you could return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. But then also the payoff in black is the 1/2 lifelinker that whenever a creature you control that's enchanted dies, then you get to draw a card. So
Mhm.
basically, you get to do a whole bunch of cool stuff when things die with auras on them. And black has a lot of very offensive auras, while
Right.
white has auras that make you want to attack. So it's a good combination to be an aggressive archetype.
Yeah. And to sort of kind of help pay you back, right, for investing in those enchantments early and getting them into the graveyard. There's Arcana Falling Stars. So for 4 white, get a 4/4 flyer, which is actually really good in the set because it's one of the biggest flyers. But when Arcana Falling Stars dies, you may return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Yep.
Any enchantment, so it can get a god back if you have one, or a demigod. But yeah, so you can get an aura back and attach it to whatever creature you need to.
Yep.
Uh,
Laguna Band Storyteller, so 3 and a white for a 3/4 Centaur Advisor. When Laguna Band Storyteller enters the battlefield, you may put target enchantment card from your graveyard on top of your library. If you do, you gain life equal to its converted mana cost. So, pluses and minuses, it is a little slow, but
mhm.
sometimes the life might be really useful, especially if you're pulling back something like the Apathy,
Yeah,
right? Or like Heliod's punishment. It's might be needed for whatever it is that's going on. It's a great overall toolboxy card.
yeah. Uh, the next archetype that we're going to talk about is one that I really hope works, but after Throne of Eldraine, I'm not entirely sure. It is red blue flash, which I think is more sustainable than red blue draw two.
Right.
Uh, so the main signpost for this one is Mischievous Chimera. So for blue and a red, you get a 2/2 flyer. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then you get to scry 1.
Right.
It's pretty good for casting something on your opponent's turn, casting an Omen.
Right.
If there's not an opt in this set, but if
Right.
there was, right, if you cast opt, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, the big payoff here, the one you're probably going to see the most often is Arena Trickster. So for 3 and a red, you get a 3/3 Human Shaman, and whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Arena Trickster.
Yep.
So already, if you get the mana for it and be able to do it, it's a 4/4, which is really hard to deal with. Now, I think the reason why this is a little bit more viable than the draw 2 archetype from Eldraine is that a lot of the draw 2, it's just a sorcery. They don't have much else.
Yeah.
What's really helpful about what's going on in Theros is that all the flash creatures that activate this casting your first spell on your opponent's turn, most of them are creatures or permanents that actually stick around on the battlefield and do stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like I'm a little more hopeful in this case.
Yeah. So you just waited so that I would have to read this one, didn't you? One of the ones that triggers this that add common that is really good is Riptide Turtle. We briefly mentioned Riptide Turtle earlier. 1 and a blue for an 05 Flash Defender. It blocks almost everything in the set. Like it's a really solid blocker, and it's cheap, and you can cast this pretty easily on your opponent's turn, just to save yourself a couple of damage.
Yep. Also, as a way to basically say no, no, no to your opponent trying to get rid of your big creature or any of your important combo pieces, Starlit Mantle. So for 1 and a blue, it's a flash, an aura with flash, enchant creature you control. When Starlit Mantle enters the battlefield, enchanted creature gains hexproof until end of turn, and enchanted creature gets +1/+1. So, I mean, again, this is solid for any other deck, whether it's, you're playing some kind of heroic archetype in blue white, or if you're just trying to trigger Constellation or getting your devotion pips. But like this just does fill so many roles here, just having a flash enchantment like this.
Yep. And then we also briefly mentioned Aspect of Manticore.
I think this is a ridiculous, goodly good red card.
I'm gonna lose a lot of creatures to this guy. 2 and a red for a common aura, flash enchant creature. When Aspect of Manticore enters the battlefield, enchanted creature gets first strike until end of turn, and then enchanted creature gets +2/+0. So the flash is really good in this particular archetype, but it adds a bit of aggressiveness.
It's a great
to
combat
it.
trick, and then it sticks around. The +2/+0 again makes your opponent have to decide whether or not it's worth throwing away a combo piece in order to stop your creature.
Mhm.
And then in blue, the blue devotion card that's not the demigod is the Threnody Singer, which is 1 and a blue for a siren. It's a 1/3 flash flying. When Threnody Singer enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-0 until end of turn, where X is your devotion to blue. So it's already -1/-0, but hopefully there's some more. I mean, the turtle and all that other jazz.
Yep.
But it saves you damage, and it's a 1/3, so it's a reasonable blocker itself.
Yep. Next archetype that we're going to talk about is Red White Heroic. We briefly mentioned this earlier.
My cube is going to probably see a bunch of changes after this.
Yeah, I think this is going to be really interesting for your cube. But the signpost for this one is Hero of the Nyxborn. 1 red white for a 2/2 human soldier. That is also an enchantment creature, so it's going to trigger Constellation. When Hero of the Nyxborn enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier token. And then whenever you cast a spell that targets Hero of Nyxborn, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn.
So we mentioned that basically every card with heroic in the set also has hero in their name. So if we want to just briefly go through these, and they all have the same heroic ability, where if you target them with a spell, all creatures you control get +1/+0.
Yep.
So we have Heroes of the Revel, which we've seen before, Hero of the Winds, which is the flying version of it, and then we have Hero of the Pride, which is just the 1 and a white 2/2 bear that has the heroic ability. And then we have Hero of the Games, which is 2 and a red, which is the 3/2 slightly more aggressive red version of this. And all to wrap all that up, which is really interesting, is the big payoff that you want to look for in this deck is Phalanx Tactics, which is 1 and a white. Oh, Pluto. 1 and a white. For an instant, target creature you control gets +2/+1 until end of turn, and each other creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So, funny enough, when you combine this with your heroic creature, that just means all your creatures get +2/+0 because they had stacks.
Yep. +2/+1, and your hero gets +3/+1. Right?
Is that other creatures?
Other creatures?
Creatures you control. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep.
So this is going to be very powerful at 2 mana.
Silly dog.
Yeah. This is going to be this is going to be a huge blowout card, I think, in this set. It's going to make blocking really hard to figure out if your opponent's holding up 2 mana and white. You're going to have a really, really hard time figuring this out, and it's only a single white pip, so it's going to be super splashable. So you might expect this, or you might not expect it, but it will probably show up in a couple of other decks. But it's the most effective here because this is the one that generates the most tokens.
Yep.
And one of the things that does that is Reverent Hoplite.
Mhm.
So 4 and a white for a 1/2 uncommon human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens equal to your devotion to white, which might not be a lot, and this already gets you at least one.
Right. For 5 mana though, I really do have to see because there are a fair amount of good white pip, double white pip cards out there. I'm just curious, at least from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like it generates too many just yet. This might be one of the few cards I feel like I'm a little cool on, but I think I just probably haven't seen its full potential.
Yeah, I think it's something that has a really high payoff if you can get it to work.
Yep.
Otherwise, by itself, it's a 2/3 for 5, which is not great.
Yeah, not good.
And then is this the last one? It is.
It is the last one,
We
which
have
is
one left, which is
Simic.
yeah.
Simic pile, basically.
You just play enchantments, my dude.
Yeah, because Eutropia, the twice favored, for 1 green blue, just as Constellation, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature gains flying until end of turn. So Skyrider Patrol, I really
Yeah.
like that card back in M20, and it's in my cube. And it's just basically Skyrider Patrol on Constellation Fall. So you play enchantments, people get big, people get evasive, and you protect those with your blue spells.
Yep. That's basically it. This is another one where Triton Wave Rider is going to be a really, really good card
Right.
because you don't have to give Triton Wave Rider the counter. It's already a big flyer.
Right.
Well, a relatively big flyer.
Right.
And so you're just really going to want to play as many blue and green constellation creatures as you can find, as many blue and green enchantments as you can find.
Right. Shimmerwing Chimera is also going to be really good to
Yeah.
bounce creatures back to constantly trick a constellation. I mean, if you think about it, like we sort of had a thought where some of these, it's the minor themes that they had. For example, the ferocious in red green, the heroic in red white, the aristocrats in red black. So like Jund colors would end up being a little more focused in terms of like being able to see a definite kind of theme going on here.
Mhm.
The rest of this, so we're talking like Sultai, is basically just Sultai good stuff constellation pile.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like black has a lot of really good removal on their enchantments, in which case blue and green have some pretty decent constellation payoffs. Right. Or green just has big creatures that you can just push across. Like it's just sort of piley.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just it makes it interesting when we start talking about these archetypes where just like this such a synergistic set where so many things can go into so many different decks. It ends up just being it is just play a pile of good stuff.
Yep.
And
And
it's all down to the board state decisions at that point, little spiky bits.
yeah, especially because almost everything is good stuff because everything triggers or interacts with something in some particular way.
You will find some way to make something seem like it's worth a lot more than what you just paid for it.
Yeah, exactly. So everything has a higher ceiling than it seems when you're looking at it at face value. So this is a very complicated set. Don't let that deter you, especially if you're newer. But it it adds a lot of it will make for a lot of interesting gameplay decisions, I think. While the deck building may not be as interesting on its face, I think that
Which arguably could be good for newer players as well.
yeah, that's true. It may not be that exciting, but it will definitely be really interesting as games develop. So I'm excited for the set. I'm looking forward to the pre-release Friday night.
Yep. I have high hopes that this will be a real good gameplay. It'll have real good gameplay on board.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think there's gonna be a lot of interesting decisions that you're gonna have to make moment to moment for this particular game or for this particular set. So speaking of pre-releases, as soon as this is out in time and you're not planning on going to one, I have a podcast trying to convince you to go to one. You can check that out over on Because We're Nerds. We took over the Because We're Nerds podcast, so Andy and I are shepherding it until Caleb can come back to it.
Stewards of it.
Yeah. We're stewards of the Because We're Nerds show.
Regents.
right. So will just you can check that out if you or someone you know might want to go to the pre-release, or you're trying to convince someone to go to it. And then hopefully this helps you guys out, because uh, us sitting down and doing this helps me out every time.
Yeah.
It's always a lot of fun to take a deep look at the set and then
It
kind of
forces us to
zoom
sort of
out a little
imagine.
bit.
Yeah, it forces us to really examine what's going on over here
Mhm.
and sort of imagine what it's like to play out all these things. And plus, it's really fun to just like this is our excuse to try to brew decks,
Yeah.
right? Like that worked really fun when we were doing like M20 with the bent butt fighters and all the other stuff. But in this one, it's just so hard. It was just like, all right, cool. We just chuck everything in there at first. Our list of stuff when we were what to talk about was huge at first.
Yeah.
Before we decided like, no, this is probably
Yeah.
not the best way to go.
Yeah. So if you checked out the other ones, which they're kind of obsolete now, but you're more than welcome to check out the M20 and the Throne of Eldraine one. We picked a bunch of cards that would work in each particular archetype.
Right.
The issue it was that when I pulled all the stuff for the blue white archetype, it was basically every creature and every enchantment in blue and white.
Yeah.
Because that's how the set seems to be designed. That everything has an interaction with something else, or at least like a one degree of interaction with something else, right? So you might be like an interaction once removed, but there's always something going on with the cards that you have. Unfortunately, a lot of it's usually enters the battlefield, and not. But the devotion payoffs are really good for later in the game when there's a bunch of stuff already on the battlefield. So it's going to be a really interesting set. I think I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, so this was a lot of fun as always. I love doing these, and if this helped you, or if this helped give you a good idea, either at your pre-release or during the course of the set, let us know in the comments. We love hearing from you guys. Uh, there should also be an accompanying article on etherhub.com by Friday afternoon. Hopefully, you guys can check that out as well. Lou, thank you for putting in a lot of work and helping out with this. This is
These
a lot
are
of fun.
always a lot of fun. I always enjoy these.
Yeah. So if you don't normally watch our stream, we stream Magic Sundays and occasionally Wednesdays. It's been a bit dodgy since the holidays, but Wednesdays over on the CNC Power Hour Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/CNC Power Hour. You can follow us on Twitter, Discord, Facebook, whatever. Technically Instagram. I have trouble posting to Instagram, but I'm still there. So if you have any questions, you're feel free to send us messages there. Yeah, that's about it. We also stream video games throughout the week,
Yep.
and then because we're nerds episodes every other week. So we stay busy.
Yeah.
So thanks again for joining us, and hopefully this helped, and we'll see you guys soon.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Say bye, Pluto. Hey, stop licking your foot. Hi there. Say hi.
Hi. Bye. No. Oh well. Maybe next time. Bye.